All right, so today I have the pleasure of being joined by Sam Hofstetter. Sam is going to be a double eagle next week. He's going to be walking in graduation at BC with a master's in sports administration. Sam was a classmate of mine at BC. We became friends through the program, and this is now his second appearance on the podcast. He currently works at 47 Brand. I know it's a busy time of year for you, Sam, so thank you so much for taking the time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Joey. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about interesting things that are happening in sports. I'm excited to talk about my Knicks. They're doing really well right now, and yeah, I'm excited to finally graduate as a double eagle. It's finally come to fruition. So come a long way.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both double Eagles. BC is such a special place to be, and to walk in graduation, especially with a master's degree, and you went right back to school right after you graduated. It really is special. You basically have two graduations in like 2 years, so really impressive and definitely an accomplishment you should definitely celebrate. So congratulations on that. Excited to have you on the podcast today. Let's talk some Knicks. The New York Knicks. What a run they had so far in the playoffs, and I know it's not over with yet. But the last two or three games, they were playing their best basketball than they did all season. What are your thoughts on the Knicks? Did you see them getting to this point in the Eastern Conference Finals, having a chance to make the NBA Finals?
Yeah, that's a pretty deep question. I feel like I have to think about it from like start to finish in the sense that like going into the season, I had finals aspirations, knowing what the state of the Pacers was going to be. I mean, the Celtics were obviously a surprise, but nonetheless, we thought they were going to be weaker than the previous year. So to me, it felt like the Knicks, this was their year going into the season. And obviously, it was a bit of a rocky, regular season where some weeks there'd be crazy winning streaks and some weeks it looked very questionable of what the state of the Knicks would be going forward. But now we're at a point where we just swept the 76ers and we're waiting to see who we're going to play in the conference finals. We might be hosting game one. That's very exciting. But like I said, going into the playoffs, I definitely kept level-headed. I wasn't trying to get too far ahead. I know the Knicks like to talk about staying in the moment. Like I, as a fan, I'm trying to stay in the moment because last year I was like, when we make the finals, we're going to we didn't make the finals, so it didn't matter. But like, I think being realistic and like when we played the Hawks, I thought we were going to win that series. It was a very tough first couple games, but when we beat the Hawks, I was pretty confident that we would continue to, chip away each game. And my expectation was where we are right now is exactly where I thought we would be. My hope is that we can now pass that threshold to get to the finals in the first time in what, 25, 26 years, or maybe 27 years. No, no, it's 1999, so somewhere around there. But crazy stuff going on in New York. I think it's pretty cool to be. Like I said on the previous pod, I'm from New Jersey, so being a Knicks fan in New Jersey is a whole different experience versus being a Knicks fan in Connecticut and Long Island. I feel like everybody kind of gravitates towards the Knicks. You can be a fan of the Giants versus the Jets, the Yankees versus the Mets, but most people, no offense to the Nets, I know they didn't really have their best lottery, and I don't really know many Nets fans, to be brutally honest. Most people rally around the Knicks, and I think it's really cool to see how many people are genuine fans. I know there's always going to be a bandwagony fan here and there. It's always that's part of sports, but I feel like the people who have been through it, when we had Kristaps Porzingis and we had, well, he was pretty good, but I'm thinking of Knicks player like Joakim Noah. He's
Mhm.
not an he was not that great. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like we didn't have the greatest roster for a long time, and I think now seeing what we've been able to put together in the last 5 or 6 years, I think is just like it's surreal. It really is. I mean, we came from Julius Randle and, RJ Barrett to this roster that is full of maybe not superstars. I mean, Jalen Brunson, I think, is a superstar, but Karl Anthony Towns is probably having his best playoffs ever.
Mhm.
OG Anunoby, who, I hope he's healthy, but
Mhm.
even given the state of what he's been able to put together, is probably his best playoffs ever.
Mhm.
Josh Hart's consistent. Deuce McBride's probably playing his best playoffs off the bench. So like everyone's kind of putting it together really nicely. And I mean, without getting into the Karl Anthony Towns, specifics, I think he's the reason why the Knicks have really, elevated themselves beyond what their expectations were, just because Cat is historically known as a 3-point shooting big, very good defensively sometimes. Now I would it's a weird debate because
Mhm.
he's basically a center, but he sometimes gets bullied around the paint. But I really think he's, bulked up. He's showing his strength. He's really elevated in the passing area, which I think has really opened up the offense. And he's kind of playing like this center point like a Jokic would. I'm not going to compare him to Jokic, but Mike Brown did do a similar coaching thing with Draymond Green. And again, not comparing Draymond Green and Karl Anthony Towns, but Draymond Green worked in that Warriors offense because he was passing from the point and like he was doing pick and rolls and it worked with Steph Curry. And I think Mike Brown, from his time at Golden State to now, I think he's implementing those things that worked in his own way. And I think it's really showing in the last couple games, especially during that games 5 and 6 against the Hawks and then the entire Sixer series.
Yeah, I think that was all very well said. I think one of the points that I want to point out that you made that I agree with, the Knicks really have come a long way. I know you pointed out Joakim Noah. They had, Langston
Ner
Galloway and
Nerlens Noel and Kevin Knox.
yeah, everyone's about Kevin Knox, Frank Ntilikina, Clancy Early. Like you think all the guys have had the last 10 to 15 years, and they had a lot of talent besides that, right? You had Carmelo Anthony, you had obviously the guys you have now, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, even at one point as well, had Amari Stoudemire. Like they had a lot of talent the last 15 years.
Mhm.
But then you had some tough years in between that to get back now and have a chance of making the NBA Finals would be very special. And even though I'm not a Knicks fan, an LA Clippers fan first, as you know, I've always said that New York sports, when they're playing well, that's when sports are fun and more fun and better to watch. They're going to have the primetime games. If they're better when they have those primetime games, that makes it more special. You and I are both Giants fans, so we've seen them have primetime games when they're 3-11. That's just because the way it is. It's the New York, media. Sports media is the biggest there, the biggest media capital of the world, right? So they're going to get those primetime games. But when they're playing well, nothing's more special than New York sports when they're winning games. So I'm wishing the Knicks well. I'm not going to lie. I actually had the Hawks winning that first series. I thought the Hawks were a scrappy
Wow.
team. I'll give my reasoning. I'll give my reasoning. They were a scrappy team that could play defense, and I thought they could match up well with the Knicks, which they did for the most part. Till the last game or two, they did match up very well with the Knicks. The last game or two, though, the Knicks game plan was great offensively. They limited turnovers, got rebounds, were hustling, and the Hawks shot as poor as I've seen a team maybe ever shoot. Credit to the Knicks, though, they played great defense. They got the rebounds, and by that game six at halftime, basically that game was over. And the same thing I think in game five, they blew them out in each of those. Was it game six and game seven? Was it? They blew them out game five and six. That went
It,
6 games, right?
it only went 6.
Yeah.
What's crazy, I don't have the exact numbers. I actually did see an Instagram post recently that like actually broke it down, but the Knicks, I want to say roughly were a like plus like 110, like plus minus against the Hawks. Like they lost 2 games by 1 point. They won game one by about a dozen. They won game four by like 20. They game five by like maybe like somewhere around 15 and 20. And then they obviously won game six by 51, and they had a 61-point lead at one point, which is the largest lead and largest margin of victory for a playoff game in NBA history. So that's just crazy. And then obviously now the Sixers series was not particularly close. There was one game that was close, but collectively, I want to say the Knicks are plus like 194 or 5 in the postseason, which is by far the best plus minus of all time. The only team that I think came close, it could be the Warriors. I forget which team it was, but they only had like 150 or 60 up until this point. Now, granted, the counter argument is we played a 6 seed and we played a 7 seed. I understand. But prior to the playoffs even starting, and probably around the time the Sixers were playing game seven against the Celtics, my opinion on the Eastern Conference is that the seeds were wrong to begin with. Like I think just purely based off of injuries and expectations and just kind of how things, played the way it did in the Eastern Conference, I really think that the Hawks and the Sixers were incorrectly seeded. Obviously, it's record based, so I'm being really subjective here, but I, in my opinion, I don't think the Raptors were as good as a 5 seed. They had the same record as the Hawks and had the tiebreaker for whatever reason. But who knows? Maybe the Hawks will or the Raptors will be better than the Hawks in the long run. But based on what they put together in the season, I think the Hawks are the more impressive team. Jalen Johnson is an all-NBA caliber player, and the Sixers, when healthy, probably could have been a top 4 or 5 seed. So that's kind of the way I see it, and I understand. And even with the Magic too, like they were an 8 seed, and going into the season, people probably thought they were also not going to be in the play-in, but being one of those top 6 seeds. So, like I said, it doesn't surprise me that the first round went the way it did, where the Knicks did go to 6 games against the Hawks, but all the other games in the East went to 7, which is just insane to think about. I don't think that has happened in well over a decade. I could be longer, but I think there's a lot more parity in the Eastern Conference than people want to give credit to because and in all fairness, the West is more top end talented and most of the MVP candidates and the people that you recognize in the NBA are more weighted towards the West. And maybe that's because of, LeBron, Steph, KD being in the West and, Luka, Shea, Jokic all in the West. I understand. But at the same time, there are some great teams in the East. And that's not me being biased as a Knicks fan. I think the Celtics are always good, regardless of if they have their superstar player playing or not. Obviously, the Cavs are potentially putting the Pistons up against the ropes yet again, and the Pistons are quite a surprise as well. I think right after the Knicks beat the Pistons last year in 6 games, I was very concerned that the Pistons were going to be pretty good the following season. I didn't think they're going to be this good and win like 60 plus games, but we'll see what they put together against the Cavs in game 5 tonight, right? I
Mhm.
think they play
Yep, game
tonight.
five tonight. It's a big game, huge game tonight. And I think the point you made that was great, that I agree with most, is the East, I think, is a little bit underrated. People want to just look at the West because, yeah, the MVP candidates for the most part are in the Western Conference, but there is a lot of talent in the East. There are some scrappy teams that are capable of winning the NBA Finals, the Knicks being one. I think the Cavs, the Pistons, like they're very capable of making a run to the finals and winning. I think at the end of the day, though, like you said, I think it comes down to the superstars that are in the West. That's why people only talk about the West. But the Knicks are a team that's playing the best basketball right now. And as we are now joined by Aleks Djordjevic. Now Aleks is going to be graduating from BC next week with Sam with a master's in sports analytics. It'll be Aleks. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today and join Sam as well. A pleasure having you back on the podcast. How you doing today?
I did not click hard enough. Goddamn. I'm doing fantastic. How about you, gentlemen? How's it going?
We're great, doing well, talking
We're
some
having a
Knicks.
great convo about basketball, but I know you're the hockey guy, future GM. We
Unreal.
understand.
Let's go. Let's go, Vancouver Grizzlies. Gone too soon. Gone too soon. Can't believe it.
I
I
think
was
the
going to be a
real
season ticket holder, but you know what? They didn't want to do that. They were too busy. Like whoever was working, they were like, we don't know how to, what was it in Gregory Krug's sports analytics class at BC? Churn rate. Oh, we can't master the churn rate of
uh
the
the
Vancouver market. Yeah, right. Oh,
that just
well,
gave me a flashback to an Excel file that I haven't looked at in over a year. That's crazy.
yeah, yeah. And the Power BI virtual machine lessons on data camp. And I was like,
uh
oh, Greg, why are we using this?
Incredible.
It was awesome though.
No, he's a cool guy.
Greg's
Um
awesome. He's a really good dude. And thanks for joining us, Aleks. And we'll be talking some basketball probably for another 10 minutes, and then we'll talk some football maybe for 5 to 10, and we'll dive into talking hockey, which Aleks actually just started his own hockey database online, which we'll talk about that at the end of the episode, which it really is so fantastic. All the work you put into that, the college hockey model. It's called collegehockeymodel.com. And everyone here, it'll be listed in the description on Instagram and on YouTube and on Spotify. But all the work you put in, dude, for that is really impressive. And as I said to Sam at the beginning, gotta say congratulations to you again as well. Congratulations to both of you guys. Masters from BC, and a pleasure having you both on today. So psyched for another great episode with you guys. And one more question I want to ask you about the Knicks, Sam, before we move on to maybe talk about the draft lottery and then the Giants really quick. Is you look at the now Eastern Conference, what's left? Game 5 tonight. You have the Cavs, you have the Pistons. Which team do you think the Knicks would match up better with?
Definitely the Cavs, if I'm just based on what happened this season, I think the Cavs are the much easier matchup for the Knicks, based on their size and their scoring. The thing with the Cavs is they're great defensively. I know Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are great defenders, and that might give Karl Anthony Towns trouble. But like I said, with Karl Anthony Towns playing this like pseudo point guard passing, position, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen will have to come out to the three-point line to have to guard him, and that's going to be opening up lanes for the Knicks to, drive to the basket and really create some space and some interesting scoring opportunities. So I think just like on a matchup and like this Mike Brown wizardry with when it comes to his offense, I think will really shine against the Cavs. Whereas the Pistons, like we both know during the regular season, I think the Knicks are 0-4 against the Pistons this year in the regular season. It might be 0-3. I don't know how many times they played, but we didn't win a single game against them. However, we did beat them last year in the playoffs in 6 games. So regular season doesn't matter. It's obvious from last year too. I think we were 1-3 against the Celtics last year, and we ended up beating them. So I'm not going to judge a matchup based on what happened in the regular season, but it's definitely a data point. It's definitely something that the Knicks are heavily focusing on. And the more important thing too, if the Pistons were to move on, the Knicks are on the road. I know they're more rested, but going to play games 1 and 2 in Detroit, that's going to be not going to be easy. Whereas if you get games 1 and 2 at home against the Cavaliers, that just sounds like a much easier matchup for the Knicks overall.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the best point you made there was the 0-4, 0-3, right? They've struggled against the Pistons. You did beat them last year, and I think the Knicks, the brand of basketball they've played the last 5 or 6 games now, dating back from the Hawks series to what they did against the Sixers. Like that was their best brand of basketball all season long. And if you played that level that you played there, I think either team you would take care of. Then again, though, every matchup's different. Injuries are a factor too, right? OG Anunoby might not play in game one, at least trending towards playing, I read today, but we'll see what the case is when game one does roll around. I'll ask you this though. In the event the Knicks do lose, whether it's to the Pistons or the Cavs, is it fair to expect major changes for them this offseason?
It's a really tough question. I think it depends on who they play. I know it sounds like a crazy thing to say, but and it also depends on how the series goes. So let's just say they play the Pistons and lose in 6, maybe 7 games. I don't think that's going to lead to any major changes. I think Mike Brown has proven at that point, he literally, because I think they lost to what, the Pacers in 6 games also in the East Finals. So I guess in my head, I don't know, I'm not in the Knicks front office. I'm not making these decisions. But if I were in their shoes, if Mike Brown is able to get to the same level as Thibodeau, which is like game 6 in the East Finals, I think that's enough to show that like, hey, we're not going to fire you. Like I think he's proven past that point already just based on how he's performed. But my point being is let's just say the Knicks get swept in 4 games. Let's just say this happens. It could happen. He could get fired. There could be changes, but my personal opinion, I think everyone on the roster is safe. There could be some changes based on the bench. I'm pretty sure the Knicks paid everybody, so I don't think there's any weird contract dispute. I'm pretty sure their starting rotation is all under contract for at least another 3 or 4 years. So if anything, it's probably one of their, I think it might be Mitchell Robinson, I think is the biggest name or like quote unquote free agent. So that'll be really interesting to see what they do. But I find it hard to believe letting him walk as their longest tenure Nick. I think he's been nothing but incredible for them when he is healthy, and he's been pretty much fully healthy for the last 2 seasons. So I think that going back to my previous point, I think the roster will stay the same, and I think Mike Brown has kept himself his job for another year. And I'm not a Knicks fan who's like someone has to be fired right away, like the Jets do with their coach. Every other season they're like firing somebody. But I do think the bar is very high in New York, and I think Mike Brown's proven that he's able to get to that bar, and I think there's a lot more to prove for sure, but I think he's safe this season, and I think that's the most important thing that they can think about going forward.
Yeah, I think getting to this point, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think it's tough to fire your coach after that and make major changes. I think there are little tweaks you can make with your roster always. I have read some reports though. Do you buy into the buzz of a Giannis potential trade where you trade something like Anunoby or Mikal Bridges with Cat? Like, would you ever want to do that? And do you also think it's like a valid rumor?
So my opinion on the potential Giannis trade for the last, I think since last offseason when the rumors were like kind of coming into fruition that Giannis like wanted to go to New York, and we actually did make an offer to the Bucks. I think it was Karl Anthony Towns and possibly Mikal Bridges or Anunoby. I don't remember the deals, but it involved Cat for sure. At that moment of time, I was very skeptical if that would even be worth it. And as the season progressed, even with the rocky regular season, I was becoming less convinced that I actually wanted to do that trade. And now it's even more evident at this point. I'm cool with the roster. If we never win a championship with this team, I can't hate what the Knicks put together. I mean, there are plenty of teams that, like, let's think about the Sixers, for example. Haven't made it to the East Finals in even longer than the Knicks. And I know they got VJ Edgecombe and they got some interesting dynamics with their future, but I think the Knicks should be really happy with what they've put together, given where they were 5 years ago. Their entire starting lineup is all through trades and free agency. That's like almost unheard of. The fact that they were able to put this together with cheap deals that were more like prove it deals, like Jalen Brunson was only getting paid 25 million a year when they first signed him, and people were like, "That's a crazy overpay." And now it's like, "Wow, might be the best contract in basketball." And same goes with even when we traded for Mikal Bridges. I know that trade to this day is tough. We're still paying him like well under, I think, his market value. So I think other than maybe like Karl Anthony Towns, who is getting paid a lot, Karl Anthony Towns every day is surprising me, and he may be proving his worth every day. So we'll see. I think the Knicks should keep their core together. I think the chemistry is key, and I think Mike Brown specifically unlocking the offense and really getting the bench comfortable in these playoff games is something that I never saw Tom Thibodeau do. The fact that uh, Deuce McBride, Mitchell Robinson, Landry Shamet is turning into like a household name is kind of crazy. I think Landry Shamet's averaging well over a dozen or 15 points off the bench. I know we've been beating teams pretty crazy and by crazy margins, so those might be inflated, but that's pretty noticeable for a bench player. So I think the Knicks bench matches up really well against practically everybody. I think the Thunder would be their biggest question mark just because the Thunder practically have two starting lineups in one. So, you know, I think like I said, being in the moment, I think focusing on the next round against potentially the Pistons or the Cavs, I think is a great matchup for the entire Knicks roster overall.
Yeah. I think you made a great point when you said that it's really tough to mix up your core too. Like they're really clicking right now. The chemistry's great. I think if the Knicks did make a trade, which Giannis, I think honestly, if I could have any player in the NBA on my team and I'm trying to win right now, Giannis would be my guy. I think he's the most unstoppable player in the league. With that being said, though, if you trade for him and you're giving up OG or Mikal with Cat, it's kind of like what the Phoenix Suns did when they had DeAndre Ayton and they traded him and then traded Chris Paul after making the NBA Finals, which very well the Knicks could do this year, make the NBA Finals. They mix up that core, and then every other year they're trying to make a big move. They get Bradley Beal, they trade, another piece. Trade for at the time they made a trade with the Brooklyn Nets. I can't remember his name. They made a few Royce O'Neal. They made a few other deals as well to try to improve their roster.
I thought you were talking about Kevin Durant. Sorry.
Kevin Durant too.
I was like that Kevin Durant guy, he seems pretty good.
Kevin Durant, that was another big move they made. I don't know why I thought Royce O'Neal first, but granted, I did.
That's elite ball
Yes,
knowledge.
yeah, I somehow, some way thought of Royce over KD, which KD is probably like my favorite player ever. So it's pretty crazy. I thought of that. With that being said, they broke up that core that they had, and they went out and got guys that maybe they didn't really need. Yusuf Nurkic and Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant. I do think was a piece they somewhat needed, but it did break up, their core that did make it to the NBA Finals, right? So. It's tough to do that. And I think if you do that, you trade, all your pieces, and then every other year getting a new coach, it's really tough to recover from that. So I think the Knicks, with where they're at right now, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to roll into next year with the same roster. We'll see what they decide to do. Obviously, we'll see how this rest of the year plays out. If they win the NBA Finals, they're not making any big moves. If they lose in 4 games to the Cavs or the Pistons, maybe they'd make a move. Giannis is tough to not get if you can get him, but at the same time, the price has to be right. And the Knicks obviously already gave up a lot of picks to get Mikal Bridges, so I don't know if they'd even be able to match the picks that the Milwaukee Bucks would want in a deal. But we'll see. That brings me to the NBA Draft Lottery. I want to get your opinion really quick. So it shook out with the Wizards with the number one pick, Utah Jazz at 2, Grizzlies at 3. Bulls at 4, Clippers at 5. How do you think the top 3 picks will shake out? Do you think AJ Dybantsa is a lock to go number one?
Absolutely. I think before I've seen mock drafts before the lottery and prior to the season even happening, I always thought AJ was one. That's just what my personal opinion was. I didn't really know too much about Darren Peterson going into the season. I did watch a few of his games. I did watch the game where he did play against AJ Dybantsa, and he practically was the better player, but he didn't play in the second half at all. So take that information as you want, but I think AJ is probably going to go first. I have this weird opinion that I think um, Cameron Boozer could go too, but the consensus around what I'm hearing is that they're probably going to go with Darren Peterson just because the starting lineup would probably be what? It would be Darren Peterson, sure, as one of the guards. They'd have,
Keontae George.
Keontae George, who's one of my favorite up and coming. I think he's going to be a star. This is my like hot take alert. I think Keontae George will be an all-star next season. I'm calling it right now. He might be dropping like 22 points a game. I'm calling it right here. But I think Keontae George, Darren Peterson, Ace Bailey's probably going to start. I can't imagine them not starting him. And then you have a nice combination of uh, Markkanen, and you could start Walker Kessler, but because you traded for Triple J, I think you're going to start him probably at the five. But that's a really nice lineup and some nice bench pieces that I really think the Jazz and the Wizards together, they do share a lot in common in that, they traded for some names, they got lucky in the draft lottery, and I would not be surprised if both teams were at the bare minimum playing teams, and we'll see going forward. But I'm excited for both of those teams. I think they deserved it. The Grizzlies are an interesting one too. I think, ever since they traded Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr., I think it was immediately clear that, hopefully they can hit on a draft soon. Came earlier than expected, and getting someone like Cameron Boozer is a great start. I think they're still going to be in the lottery. It is what it is. I think that's just kind of the Grizzlies are very early on their rebuild, and the Bulls got really lucky. I think it's good for them because they've been perpetually mid. So them getting someone like a Caleb Wilson, I think will most likely Caleb Wilson will be great for them. And then we have to talk about your Clippers, my friend. As a Knicks fan, I think going into the draft lottery, the two things that I was selfishly thinking about the entire time was it's a coin flip if the Pacers keep their pick. I would love for them to lose their pick to the Clippers. That sounds fantastic. And the Hawks had two outside chances at getting the number one overall pick. And I think the worst possible pick they could have had was the number eight overall pick, and it ended up being the number eight overall pick. So as a Knicks fan, I'm pretty happy with the lottery gods and just the way things shaped out because it couldn't have been any better. And I think for the state of the Knicks being, good and not, and the Pacers seem to be their arch nemesis. I think the Pacers not getting a top four pick, I think, is good for the Knicks, and I'm happy that another team in the Eastern Conference is getting, a potential superstar like AJ, like the Wizards. I think that'll be great for, the Eastern Conference parity and competition. I think that'll be really great for the league.
Yeah, I think everything you said there, I completely agree with. Like Darren Peterson fits really well in that Utah Jazz lineup. They already have a lot of big men, Markkanen, Jaren Jackson, Walker Kessler. Doesn't make sense to go get another big man, especially with Ace Bailey being, a small forward, power forward kind of combo. I think with where they stand right now, too, like they can roll the dice. I feel like they landed a top three pick. It seems like every year, besides last year when they got Ace Bailey, which he kind of fell to them at five. They had a lot of years they could have gotten the number one pick and they didn't. Now they're, top three, so it kind of worked out for them in that regard. So rolling the dice on a guy like Darren Peterson, who could be the best scorer in the draft, is definitely very much worth the roll. I agree. I think AJ Dybantsa is the best player in this draft, and I've probably the biggest hot take about AJ, probably than anyone. I think day one he steps in the league as a top 15 player right away. I think he's an all NBA player year one. If he gets that, I don't know because they're going to be probably the Wizards will be better next year than they were this past year, but we'll see if they keep Anthony Davis. We'll see how Trae Young works out in that lineup as well. He's got a player option for next year, so we'll see if he sticks around. But I think they were expecting Trey to stay, but I do think though that team around him will be good enough for them to be competitive. Will it be good enough for him to be all NBA? Who knows? I do think talent wise though, he is a top 15 player day one. I know it's high
Wow.
expectations for a rookie. We'll see. I think his ability to slash and get to the bucket is just as good as probably I'd say the best in the draft. And then in the NBA, like I think he can be a top 10 to 15 slasher right away getting to the bucket, which that's
Wow.
really crazy to say because
I,
there's so many good scorers in the league, but that's just me.
here's a quick follow-up question for you that I think is an interesting thing to think about because I think I might have an opinion on this, but I'm curious just based on what you're saying, your thoughts. based on some of the most recent number one overall picks in no particular order. I know Reese Shea is one of those two. I'm not counting him for this. He's kind of a sort of a bust. But most recently, you have Victor Wembanyama, Cooper Flag, Cade Cunningham, Anthony Edwards. If I'm missing one, please remind me. But those are some of the big names I'm thinking of in most recent drafts. Where do you think AJ falls in that? Because for me, I think it's Wemby. Then you can make the argument for probably Cade. I think Cade has to be top 10 right now.
Yeah.
And Cooper is still very early, has the potential to be top 10, but I think four, well, then there's Ant. It's like, where does Ant go? I think Cooper and Ant are like similar tier. I know it sounds crazy. I think Cooper will surpass Ant at some point, but I think right now it's Wemby and Cade are one and two. But I don't know where AJ falls. I'm very neutral on AJ. I could be, you know, pleasantly surprised, but I'm not putting him higher than Cooper or Ant at this exact moment.
It's a great question. I'm completely with you. It's really tough to rank those guys because like Anthony Edwards is so good, Wemby's so good. Not easy to rank them. I would probably go, and Cade's playing so well right now. Like I was gonna probably put Cade third, but I'm like, he's playing such good basketball. And are we ranking these based on when they got drafted, like heading in expectations wise, or like where they are, I guess, at the start of next season?
I think we need to rank them based on how they are right now in this present moment, and then your personal opinion of where you think AJ could fall there. Like
Okay.
obviously AJ hasn't played, so you can say right now, I think AJ is going to be better than Wembanyama, but I don't think that's realistic. But that's your opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. It's a great question. It's a great debate. I'll go Wemby one. I'll go Ant two.
Wow.
This is based on right now. I
Sure.
think, although Cade's been great too, I think Ant, with what he's been able to do, and I think even beating the Lakers with which, I mean, I guess no, Minnesota didn't beat the Lakers though. Minnesota, who they
They
play
beat the
last week?
Nuggets.
Beat the Nuggets. That's who they beat. The Nuggets. Jokic. Like
Mhm.
I had the Nuggets making the NBA Finals, and then they ended up winning that series. I know Ant had injuries, but what he's been able to do in the playoffs has been impressive. I know now they're down 3-2, but I'm gonna put Ant two, Cade three, and then I'm gonna go and I'll put Flag four and I'll put AJ five as of now because we haven't seen AJ play in the NBA yet. I think at the start of next season though, AJ, by the time middle of next season, I'll say maybe from the beginning to about the middle, I think AJ gets above Cooper Flag. I think he gets right at the same level with Cade, maybe not the same level. 5 years from now, though, I think when it's all said and done, I think he'll be third in that group. I would go probably Wemby and then I'm gonna go AJ, Anthony Edwards, Cooper Flag. It's really tough to rank those guys. They're all expectations wise, like they're all generational talents in different ways, right? Like they're all great players. So tough to
I'm lower on Ant than most people, so I respect your opinion with what you're saying 5 years from now. I do think that scenario does exist. I think this is like the debate that we can die on this hill. I think Cooper will be better than AJ in 5 years. If you think AJ is gonna be better than Cooper in 5 years, we'll leave it as that.
That's valid. No, I think they're both great players. So like you never know how, luck will shake out, injuries, what their surroundings are, players wise, coaching, like that always does play a factor. It's not always just the player, the surrounding pieces around them definitely matter. So we'll see. I think that'll be a great debate to see how things stand. And we're going to do more episodes in the future. So we'll keep our updated rankings, as time goes on. But I think everything you
You're
said,
missing one guy though.
what'd you say?
You're missing one guy though on that list, undrafted, but he's there. He's on my ones to watch radar.
Let's hear it.
But who's it?
Andrei Stojakovic from the Illinois University or University of Illinois, however you say it. I
Was
like
it
those guys. The
was it
Balkan
what
Five, I like those guys. Those are my brothers over there. Those are my brothers over there.
Yeah, I think he might be ahead of Kate actually. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Give it a couple years. Yeah, you put this kid on Indiana, done. Like his dad. Lights out. Lights out. Lights
I
out.
love it.
Better yet, send him to play with what's his face, LaMelo. Oh, it'll be like those Hills highlight tapes, but like NBA, man. Different gravy.
Lights out
All
offense.
my Serbs, we're overdue, man. Yeah, some Taco Bell commercials, maybe throw on a Subway commercial. Done deal. If we're feeling extra frisky, like maybe put one of those what are those giant like brew hall I think they're called like Tap Room or something. I forget what it is. There's one.
Like the Sam Adams one in Faneuil Hall.
No, 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 no. There's right by Fenway. There's that one bar, and they're everywhere in the US right now. They had it in Denver as well. They had it in Vegas. It doesn't matter. I digest in the wise words of the crossover episode on Star Wars and Family Guy when the typewriter says I digest. I digest in this case, gentlemen.
It's a great reference.
But yeah, Andrei Stojakovic, that's a guy. Like, I don't know if he'll translate to the NBA game. Obviously, you fellas are a little bit more versed in this realm than I am, but I just love watching college hoops for that reason because it's so rare that you see just a group of 4 or 5 like random white guys from Eastern Europe get pulled into like, the US Midwest and they're like, it doesn't matter.
Mhm. Yeah, not
Top
I'm with
five,
you.
top five opposition doesn't matter. We'll do our thing. And then obviously in the end, they didn't really, we won't talk
Yeah,
about the end of their season, but
they raised some
until the end of
eyebrows.
their season, they were the best. They were the best Serbian basketball team in the world in Illinois.
I'm with you though. You make a great point though. College basketball, though, there is a beauty of it. Of now, it was always international, right? Like they would get guys from different countries, but now with NIL being a thing, guys are getting paid more money here than they might make in European professional leagues, depending on who they are and the caliber of a player they are. So that's what makes college basketball, I think, even more unique now than it was. And I know college sports is very
This
much.
guy could be the premier of Serbia with the amount of money he's making from Illinois for NIL for next year. This guy goes to Serbia. He's the Sheikh of Belgrade. Like he could build a high rise over. Well, not really. He could make like a 3, 4 story tall building, but still, hey, that's a lot for Serbia. Like the moment it goes past 2 floors, multi-purpose as well, like a little, cafe at the bottom, done deal. This guy could retire instantly. So it's game-changing money over there, and well, like that's an excellent point because like here in the U.S. and in Canada where I am, um, that might not be a like generational wealth. It might be like your first pro deal. Like if you get drafted into the NFL first 2 rounds, congratulations, you're the guy. If you're Gronkowski, like you'll be able to make do with your earnings and you'll be fine and you'll somehow never spend a dime of your NFL money. With the NBA guys, from what I heard that the spending habits for them are a little bit more touch and go, and it's kind of like the New York City influencer marketplace where people are living paycheck to paycheck because the you get drawn to the lifestyle. But my corn-fed, goulash-fed guys from Eastern Europe, oh, those Balkan beauties, they're not spending any of that money. Those guys are straight there for one purpose: hoops. That's it. That's going to be their master's degree, master's in hoops. And then eventually they'll be like, fringe first round, second round picks. Chicago Bulls, OKC will draft one of them with one of their 800 picks that they still have laying around.
Oh, you
And
mean the
next thing
Clippers
you
pick?
know,
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Clippers picks. Yeah, they got ours.
you're
So
firing shots like crazy, man. That's an unwarranted dude. You have a license to carry? That was lethal right there. Oh my God.
No, but the Clippers got a better pick than their own pick this year. So, I mean,
the fifth pick we got, which is great, and we need it, especially
yeah, I
heading into
mean,
the field. So we got lucky in that
pretty
regard.
good.
I'll
But
take it, and they
but
need.
but we don't need to talk about the Paul George shit. It's okay.
At the end of the day, hey, that Paul George trade doesn't happen though. I'm not a Clippers fan, so and I'm a Clippers fan for life.
Mm.
So without that trade, I wouldn't have been a fan, and now I have a new team to root for, and it's a unique team, right? Now I have the New York Giants, LA Clippers, Boston Red Sox, Boston Bruins. So we got Boston, LA, New York all covered. So I guess that's the beauty of it. And that brings me to the Giants. Let's talk Giants really quick. Sam, couple minutes about them. What were your thoughts on the Giants taking Ava Reese at 5 and then Francis Mawanoa at 10 in the 2026 NFL draft?
Honestly, big surprise, but I'm happy with it for a number of reasons. I like watched some like post draft or like I was listening to like I'm not a big fan of Joe Shane as the GM, but he does make decisions with John Harbaugh, so I gotta listen to him. But they had Arvell Reese, I think, as their number one overall prospect. And I don't know where CC Mauigoa ranked. I think he was probably top three for them. I would have to imagine. Was he fourth?
I think fourth in their eyes, yeah.
I mean, I have to imagine they had Love pretty high. I'm happy they didn't get him. I'm very happy with that. Um, Obviously, I would have loved Caleb Downs, but clearly Caleb Downs was lower in their ranking because they would have picked him otherwise.
Mhm.
They had two opportunities at him. But I think when you're thinking about a John Harbaugh led team, a couple things come to mind. And I'm hopeful that this is like the vision that he's creating. I mean, you think of like the legendary linebackers that played for that team. You think about that violent run offense, and I say the word violent in the sense that they use the word violent. I think Arvell Reese got interviewed, and he's like, "How do you like to play football?" And he's like, "Violently." I'm like, "Let's have him on his team." And I think CC Mauanoa when he got drafted said something similar to Will Campbell, which you know we'll see what happens with Will Campbell, but he did say he would fight and die for Jackson Dart, so it's always a good thing to say that. So I think both of these players are really beefing up the roster. I think we're adding a lot of strength. We're adding a lot of, kind of like this bully ball mentality, getting like a Patrick Ricard in the backfield. You you cannot tell me that when it's 3rd and 1 and the Giants have Patrick Ricard, Cam Scadaboo, hopefully healthy, and this newly put together offensive line, or at least adding Maui Noah as part of it.
Mhm.
That's going to be a really interesting play call for that opposing team. Like, I wouldn't want to be going against that. Like, week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, if it's 3rd and 1, I know what they're calling. I don't know if it's going to be stopped. And the Giants had a terrible run defense, which we can talk about, but their running attack with a worse offensive line last year was pretty good. And Cam Scadaboo was part of it, and I think the interesting play calling of Brian Daboll was part of it too. But I'm curious to see what this new coaching staff will do. I think the weapons that they brought in with Likely and Darnell Moody's a nice little piece to have in the short term. I think just the way they put together the roster, I think I'm not going to guess how many wins they're going to get, but I would love for them to be a wild card team. I'd love for them to win week 1 against the Cowboys. I think they're fully capable of it. But yes, those two first round picks, really solid foundational pieces that you hope to have on the team for over a decade. And even someone like Colton Hood in the 2nd round and Malachi Fields in the 3rd round, which I learned recently. I thought it was a 4th rounder, which we did. I think we had a 4th round pick. We
Mhm.
traded it. Doesn't matter. But those later round picks, I'm hoping if they hit, I mean, that's a really awesome draft by John Harbaugh, but we'll see. I can't, I get too optimistic with the Giants. And luckily, we found our quarterback for what it's worth. I hope I'm right in that he continues to develop, but we did only win, what, 3 or 4 games last year. So, you know, keeping it slightly low expectations, improvement, and, building that foundation, I think is key. And I would love to be pleasantly surprised week 1.
Yeah, I think with the Giants taking guys in the trenches, like you could never go wrong there. Yeah, the guy might not pan out, but I think it's never a bad idea to try to build offensive line, defensive line. It's how a lot of teams win, especially win consistently. That's been a problem for us. Both offensive line, defensive line, they've really addressed the pass rush the last 3 years. It's now another year the Giants have taken a linebacker. This is a pick that's a little less of an edge guy, right? Like last year we took Abdul Carter. A few years back, we took Kayvon Thibodeau. You traded for Brian Burns. Seems like Alvaro Reese is going to play a little bit off the ball, maybe be like an inside linebacker, which is absolutely fine. That's something we need. We need a guy that's a good tackler. I didn't see him falling to 5, so I never really game planned for the Giants getting him. I was all in on Sonny Styles. Obviously, they passed on him. They had Reese higher, obviously, on their board because both were available at 5. And then with Mawanoa at 10, I did think it was going to be Downs there. But then, like you said, if Downs was the guy, they would have just taken him there. So obviously they had Mawanoa higher. And at the end of the day, I don't think you can ever go wrong trying to address the offensive line. I will ask you this question, though. There are a lot of rumors now with the Giants potentially bringing back Odell Beckham Jr. What would be your thoughts on a reunion with Odell?
To be honest, I really haven't given that much thought, and I hope I don't have to. If for whatever reason we do sign him, which would be kind of a surprise, in my opinion. I don't think it's doing much for us guys. I think it's more of a, I don't know if I have the right analogy here, but it makes me think of like when like Antonio Brown signed with the Patriots. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's what's that really doing for us? I mean, it might be fun for fantasy football for like 3 weeks, and it might be like a couple cool Instagram posts, and maybe they'll do the boat shot again, God forbid. But let's put it this way. it's a money-making opportunity 1000%. And there's no shame in that. But if you're talking about winning football, John Harbaugh, all that stuff, I just think that's like a weird like side quest in the wrong direction. Not to say that like if they do it, like I'm like I hate Odell Beckham. I actually am such a huge fan of Odell Beckham. I think, I think very highly of him. It's unfair what happened to him with how he got traded to Cleveland, and I'm happy he won a Super Bowl. I rooted for the Rams. I'm happy for him. If he comes back to New York, whatever contract that may be is besides the point. I just don't see it really moving the needle for me. People are talking about him like being this like contributor, and to be honest, I don't want to be mean. I think he is a little washed, but I do think it's more on an injury standpoint. It's like saying like Joel Embiid, who's a phenomenal player, is, I don't think he's going to win another MVP. Like I don't think Joel Embiid is ever going to win a finals. And that's nothing to like say about Joel as a player, as a person. Like it's just unfortunate. He just has these injuries and he's getting paid a little too much for proper team building. It's kind of how I see things. And again, Joel Embiid's a phenomenal player. Odell Beckham is probably a little bit farther along his career and his health. And I don't know how many years he has left playing in the NFL, but I just don't see it. And if it does happen, I'm cool with it. I'd support it. I'd support it as much as Tommy DeVito being my starting quarterback for 3 weeks. It's more comical and entertaining than um, moving towards, you know, greatness and Super Bowl winning, in my opinion.
Alex, what are your thoughts on that? I saw you shaking your head, so I'd imagine you're saying don't sign Odell.
So there's a saying in the NHL and the NBA, when a player's not performing, get ready to learn Chinese. You're about to go play for the Guangdong Tigers. In this case, get ready to learn French, pal. You're getting sent to Montreal, Canada. Welcome to the CFL. And then whatever name change he has to make that happen, go ahead. And there's no knock on Montreal. Montreal's a world-class city, world-class fan base, one of the most well-run football teams outside of the NFL are the Montreal Alouettes. Their football stadium situation, need not ask questions about that. But for the lifestyle, it's pretty good. If he's injured, it won't matter for him too much. It's a pretty good hockey city. So for you Americans now that are rediscovering the greatest sport on earth, it's a great place to be, especially right now in the midst of a playoff run against the Buffalo Sabres. And we'll see how that series ends. Obviously, I digest on that front. Um, but yeah, I mean, for him, it's, Thierry Henry, legend in the soccer world. He went there. He's doing pretty good for himself. He's still a legend of the game, didn't tarnish his reputation. Chad Ochocinco legally changed his name to Wheat Sink in French so he could go play in the CFL with the Alouettes. Might as well have another great guy, like a walking highlight reel of a human being, great personality as well. Go up there, maybe do a Lionel Messi type deal where get 10% ownership of the team or something. It's the CFL. So no knock on my Canadian fellows up here in the football world, but I've heard undisclosed people from certain college football teams that I might have had exposure to once upon a time in my life. Definitely not wearing any shirts now. But they were making jokes about guys like during pro camp days, like they're like, "Oh, this guy's getting ready to speak French. He's going up to Canada." And I'm not sure if these gentlemen were aware that the whole country doesn't speak French. It's only certain portions. And yes, it's our national language, like one of the two, but it's not a be all end all if you don't speak French. Even in Montreal, you could get away with not speaking French. But yeah, I think for him, like, you're not going to go to a team that's running lean, that's on the lower end of the roster, like complex in terms of competitiveness. Like for him, with the injuries and whatnot, I think the Dallas Cowboys would be a very nice fit for him. Now, obviously, like that
I
could
don't
be maybe
disagree.
a lukewarm or hot take, depending on how people look at it. But I think just in terms of marketability, in terms of opportunity, like you send the guy over there with the Cowboys, and if he bites the dust and he doesn't pan out, it is what it is. And at least Cowboys Nation can have one more reason to hate their team beyond what they already hate them for, which is, the Jerry Jones wall of glass that like impacts the kickers for half the game and also the quarterbacks. Like they're like, what am I looking at? Like just a crazy organization. They're truly the Toronto Maple Leafs of football. But I love him. I love these storylines within sports. But I do think, back on the note of the draft, I mean, the Giants, congratulations to both of you gentlemen. They marginally outperformed the Jets, even though the Jets had a higher pick to start the draft. So a little bit wild.
Not saying much.
But I will say that the highlight of the draft has to be pick number 247 to the New England Patriots. Alex is marked steal of the draft, Mr. Quintavious Hutchins from the Boston College. And we'll see. We'll see if he pans out. He's been given next gen analytics, or whatever the NFL calls it. They gave him a really crappy grade. But we'll see. And on the note of Mr. Will Campbell, unfortunately, they just drafted an offensive tackle that might be pushing him a little bit more, away from the areas of risk, because as we noticed in the playoffs,
Yeah. He has
not the
issues.
most
He was
reliable
hurt.
guy. He
He,
looks like, well, he was hurt, but he was also, and no disrespect to the guy. I know that, and Michael May loves this guy, and as does Drake May. So I know he's a big glue guy in that locker room. But at points in the playoff stretch, he looked like an octopus getting pulled in 8 different directions. And you don't want to look like that when your job is to live and die for your quarterback. So I hope that he can come back, get a nice plan of action, return to play, whatever it's called, given the injuries that he was hopefully playing through, given how he played. And then they start off the season well, and obviously, the media-related distractions surrounding the Patriots organization. Let's hope that that doesn't stumble into the locker room, and they can all execute their mission and improve. And if the Patriots and the Giants happen to have a nice little playoff series in the near future, maybe we could, not bet on it, because that would be frowned upon. But maybe, do one of these things, but grab a couple beers, couple of bevies, and watch that, and then obviously see who comes out on top. Since that's my NFL team still. I'm not pulling away from the bandwagon. The bandwagon's still very much parked.
I did enjoy going to the Giants Patriots last season when former
Mhm.
Ridgewood High School from New Jersey legend Youngwei Koo kicked the ground. Um, Absolute legend though. So, you know,
That was a tough game for us. Tough game. If we met in the Super Bowl again, though, the Giants, history would say the Giants would win again over the Patriots if we do meet in the Super Bowl next year, which we'll see. But I think about the Odell front, what you guys were just saying, I completely agree. Although I love Odell and he's probably my favorite Giant ever, I do think it might not be the best decision to sign him. He's not the player he once was. He wasn't that in Baltimore. He wasn't that in Miami. And now he's coming off another injury and, suspended this past year. I think he was hurt in Miami when he last played. So I don't think he was the player he once was. He'd be more like your wide receiver 3 or 4. And Dallas probably their wide receiver 4 with this Giants current roster. Maybe would be like the wide receiver 3. Who knows, how things will shake out and how Malik Neighbors will recover as well. If he's back week 1, obviously he's the guy. But I do think, as much as I love Odell and I would be psyched to see him in a uniform, I don't think he's the player he once was. So I don't know if it'd be the best move. I think nostalgia wise, it would be great. But what do you think, Sam?
I think he would be a phenomenal college football wide receivers coach at LSU. Like hold on, hear me out. Like Brian Hartline, if you know who he is.
Yep. From
Former Browns legend, now is currently the Ohio State's wide receivers coach. And I don't need to list off any names to tell you who played the position of wide receiver at Ohio State and continuing to play the position at Ohio State. Very good track record. And no one would say not Brian Thomas, Brian Hartline is like this Hall of Fame level wide receiver, but he was great and he had his great moments and he knows ball for what it's worth. I think if OBJ went into coaching, I'm not saying he has to be at LSU, but I think he has a lot of wisdom to share about those one-handed catches and how to make separation on the sideline and all those things that maybe his body isn't there anymore to be that person or that wide receiver one, just given his age and his injury history. But let's just, make a bet here 10 years from now, 20, 15 years from now. He might be more remembered as a coach than as a player. And that's not to say that he wasn't a great player. I think as a Giants fan, he's he's always got a place in my heart, but I'm just putting this into the universe. he might want to consider coaching. I think that'd be a really great outlet for him to utilize his knowledge of the game and teach the next generation of receivers to be great. I'm just making predictions here, guys. I think it could be pretty cool, and that would be a really awesome legacy for him if the New York Giants don't sign him to $50 million a year and, we win a Super Bowl or whatever.
It's an excellent point, though. I never
I
thought
think
of that.
that's a nice thing. You
Yeah.
send him to San Fran first. If I'm his agent, I'm saying go to San Fran. If he's going to be, wide receiver 3 or 4 on any depth chart, you send him to San Fran because that's the quickest way in, given their practice field situation and the transformer that's right next to it. And it's no Optimus Prime, but it still has just as good of a track record of ending careers, unfortunately. So obviously for him as a guy that's on the outside looking in of getting onto the field, like what better place than San Fran, right? And it's a nice little market to go. Like if it is your last hurrah, San Fran, Las Vegas, Dallas,
You're right.
worst ways to go out, gentlemen. You could be, playing for the Cincinnati Bengals or the Cleveland Browns again. And those winters are harsh and they suck. So we'll see. I mean, I think with a lot of these guys, if they have options, like the destination that they choose and why they choose it often speaks volumes to their character and their hunger. So I can't speak to this gentleman's character or his hunger because all I know him for is but
The one hand.
yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with him because I wasn't really, I'm not too tapped in with the NFL like you guys are down there, but yeah, I remember him quite well for that one or 2 year period where he was like, you know, Connor McDavid level for wide receivers. Not for the entire league, but for wide receivers. And, it's tough when you're riding that high for that period of time and then you just drop off due to injuries. Like, it's a tough one.
This is the last thing I'll say on the Odell Beckham front, and I feel like we can move to a different topic, but I think I just learned this morning that the OBJ catch on Thanksgiving against the Dallas Cowboys, we lost that game. I didn't know that. I don't
Yeah.
remember that. I just remember the catch. And what's crazy, I was in middle school, I'm pretty sure at the time, but the fact that I remember this catch and we didn't even win the game is all I need to hear if the Giants would sign OBJ. It would be awesome to see him, replicate some cool catches, but he didn't even win that game. So we didn't even win a playoff game with him. We've never won a playoff game with OBJ on the roster. So I'm just saying, like, it's cool. I think it's like this flashy thing. Like, it's like signing, I don't know. I don't know what the NBA equivalent would be, but it's like, man, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say LaMelo Ball because that's mean to LaMelo Ball, but like I'm just thinking of a player because he hasn't won a playoff series. I'm just thinking of like players
Yeah.
who are like
Yeah.
entertaining. People are like, oh, we like LaMelo because he's a highlight reel. Like people love what he does. Look, LaMelo is great. He almost averaged 30 points a game. He's passing like Steve Nash. He's a phenomenal player, but he's not winning playoff series like Jalen Brunson. That's all I'm gonna say, and I'll leave it as that.
I think it's nostalgia. I'm trying to think of like a signing that's like nostalgic, but a guy's not the same player he once was. Like Dwayne Wade going to Cleveland to play with LeBron again. Like I don't know if Odell's that close to where his end of a career like Dwayne Wade
I mean,
was in
I mean,
Cleveland,
it
but like
could be like
What about
having,
Damian Lillard right now?
yeah, he's
yeah, or
coming off a lot of injuries. I still feel like Dame's maybe a better
Yeah.
player than Odell is, but I agree though, injuries wise and the expectations, Dame Lillard's on your team, you expect to win, just like Odell's on your team, people expect to win. So it's honestly a solid comp. What do
but
you
like
think?
Dame had success. Like that's what I'm trying to think
Yeah,
of someone who like historically would.
Yeah, that was the caveat. I was like,
I almost said a player who is in fact playing tonight that I will not say because he does in fact have an MVP and he is a playoff choker and he
James
might
Harden.
have a longer beard than me, but he, I wouldn't compare him to him because he did in fact have playoff success. But point being, I think OBJ should not be on the roster because I don't think it's helping us. And it's just a money sink. And I mean, Alex, I mean, I think we could do better than OBJ
Dallas
on
or
the
the Houston
roster.
Texans, fella, send him to Texas. Book it.
I like it.
He's down there.
I like it though, but I'm with you. I don't think it really helps this team right now. And he never had the playoff success in the Giants. And I think it might be somewhat of a distraction. It might excite the fan base for a little bit, but I mean, expectations are going to be too high. People are expected to be the Odell of old, and obviously he's not that, unfortunately, anymore. But I love him, and I do wish him the best. If he's a Giant, if he's a Texan, even if he's a Cowboy, I wish him well. But hopefully the Giants win those games. We'll see how things go. But I'll transition us now to talking about the NHL, talking about our guy. Which the reason this podcast happened, back in February or March, is because of James Hagens. That bond and our liking of James Hagens started, the conversation with the Hosey boys, and then obviously, led to the first episode, and here we are now with the second episode. I'll ask you guys both this. I'll start with you, Sam. Do you think the Bruins made the right decision to take, obviously, James Hagens from BC, sign him to, an entry-level contract at first, being, what do they call PTO, professional tryout or whatever, with amateur tryout with the Providence Bruins, and then he gets obviously elevated to an entry-level contract to play for the Boston Bruins. Do you think the Bruins made the right decision there, burning, a year of his contract to bring him up with, only a couple games left in the regular season?
Hmm. That's an interesting point. I didn't know about I knew he played for Providence Bruins. I didn't know the whole so you're saying if he stayed in Providence, the contract would have stayed fresh for the next season, like almost
Yeah.
like NIL or like college football eligibility,
He
kind
would have
of.
still had 3 years left, right? Is
I
that
see.
correct, Sam? Right? He still, I mean, Alex, he would have had 3 years left on his contract had he not signed with the Bruins.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know that. That's interesting. I thought you were going to ask me just like purely like him being drafted on the roster, which I do think. I mean, Alex, you would know better than me. We were in fact at Banners watching the draft, but I don't remember who was picked 7 or 8 on the board. So, or who the Bruins passed up on. So, I mean, you can correct me if there was a better player than James Hagens that they could have selected. But I think just given, you know, what he means to the city of Boston, the potential of him being, a very good starting caliber player, maybe not the star of the team, who knows, but I think what you're getting out of him for value, I think will show with time. I think he has shown improvement. I didn't know about the contract thing with him playing in Providence. That just sounds like contract malpractice, if you asked me. But I mean, the Bruins still made the playoffs this year. I know it didn't pan out the way they wanted it to, but I mean, my team sucks, and the Bruins also were terrible the year before, so they're doing something right. So, I'm not going to judge a team if they want to bring up a prospect. It's like when the Red Sox brought, Roman Anthony up and, look what he became, and that happened during the middle of the season. And I know that's a totally different sport and how contracts work, but I'm thinking like similar in the sense that they have a, young up and coming prospect who's well known in the area. I think Roman Anthony played for the Woo Sox
Mhm.
for half the season. So similar, analogy in that sense. I don't hate the move. Um, the only way that would be a wrong decision, which we won't know right now, is if one, he doesn't pan out, or two, he does pan out and we're just overpaying him sooner than we should have. But that also shows his worth. And, if you're going to pay a player like that who's worth it, I don't see the problem with it.
Yeah. I agree. I think getting also NHL reps is important. Even if it's only a few games, 2, 3, 4 games, the Bruins have a chance of making the playoffs, which they obviously ended up doing. And he did get a little playoff action as well. I think that's going to help him further in his career. So I don't mind it at the end of the day. What do you think, though, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of this stuff, it's tough, right? Because like I'm revisiting the top 10 from that year. Like you've got a guy that was on the edge of the top 10. He was drafted 11th by Pittsburgh and Ben Kindle. And I guess he like, he came out really hot and he's doing some pretty decent things in the NHL and has done decent things with Pittsburgh. Like he stayed with them all year. In terms of the rest of the roster though, like you had, the rest of the first round, like you had Matthew Schaefer who went one, Michael Misa who went two, Frondell went three. Those gentlemen all Frondell came in later in the season, but with respect to Schaefer and Misa, like Schaefer played the full season, was rookie of the year, but he was drafted first overall. Misa was there and he was kind of touch and go all year. It was very similar to what Anaheim did with Leo Carlson last season or the year before, the year after his draft year, where they were playing him only on select nights. But like after the Hagens pick at 7, you have Jake O'Brien who went to Seattle. That is definitely a pick I'm okay with not making if I'm Boston, and I don't regret my decision. because he's playing right now in the OHL with the Brantford Bulldogs. They just got eliminated out of their playoff run. They were like the most loaded team for junior hockey in Canada in the Ontario League, and they lost in Game 7. They choked on a lead. They had a one game lead towards the end. They were already sliding a little bit. Like they had a commanding lead in this conference semifinal series against the Barrie Colts, and they just managed to choke the lead, and this team just willed their way back into it, and then they got swept out. Like literally they just got swept in like 4 nights pretty much, right after that series, because they had no gas left in the tank. But Jake O'Brien, back to that note on him, like there's a kid this year that's going to go third, and we'll touch on that, I guess, if we discuss the lottery and what some projected top 5 picks are. But Caleb Malholtra, who is playing um, with the Brantford Bulldogs, he's projected to leave and honor his commitment to BU. So he'll be the first line guy for Boston University this upcoming fall. So you guys will unfortunately get very familiar with this guy. So I know Sam's girlfriend, she's going to absolutely love it if she's trying to watch some BU games next year as an alumni, because this guy's legit and they're bringing in a lot of good players, and BU's like a heavy, heavy favorite, in my opinion, to run away with Hockey East,
Wow.
which is tragic. As a BC guy, it breaks my heart. But yeah, like this guy being a year removed from his draft class, top 10 pick in Jake O'Brien, to not be the most dominant or commanding guy on that team, and to have a 17-year-old kid that hasn't even turned 18 be the guy that's the leader in that locker room, be the leader on the ice, and to be the guy that's producing at an unreal clip. Like this guy was putting 2 points up per game against like the top level competition in Canada right now at the junior hockey level. But Jake O'Brien, like he was a really good facilitator and a really good top 6 forward for Brantford all year. And as Caleb Malholtra's ascension began, this guy kind of lessened with his stuff. Like still PP1 minutes and all of this stuff, but it didn't really matter. So for him, I'm like, right? Like, I don't know, tough pick. Like we're back on to James Hagens. Then you've got Radim Murtka, right shot D, playing in the WHL here in Canada. Really decent year for him, but the catch with him was he's never had like a formal skating coach, so that's why he kind of went as late as he did. And he was the first defenseman to go after Schaefer. So I mean, it was a run of like 6, 7 guys, and then you have your defenseman go. But with him, the bet that Buffalo made was the kid never had formal skating coach. So like it's just raw talent. And like he's a 6'6", 6'7" kid. Moving how he does, right? So that's intriguing, but you have Charlie McAvoy. So are you really gonna make your first high pick in however many years be a right shot D and push out the guy that's maybe gonna be your future captain if you don't name Pasternak? So that's a no, right? Then, if you like some size in the lineup and some speed and some versatility, Roger McQueen, who went 10th to Anaheim, I had him ranked as a top 5 guy. The only catch with Roger McQueen is that Roger McQueen had a lot of injury issues and missed most of the season. He played with Providence this year. He signed a deal after the season was done, and he hasn't played on the NHL roster during their playoff run. But Roger McQueen was the guy that that's the only guy that I'd consider instead of Hagens. But with Hagens, it's just like if you look at him, he's such a smart kid that I mean, I don't have him pegged as a center. So in his draft year, he was a center. He hasn't played a lick of center for the Bruins, like not the P Bruins, not the real Bruins. Like he's been out on the wing because there's just nothing for him down the middle, right? Like you're going as a 5'11" guy. Like I've walked next to this kid several times while he's walking around with his blue light lens glasses and stuff. Like I'm sorry, but like he's closer to my size than he is to the size of some of these guys that are running down the middle in the NHL, right? Like you look at any NHL roster in their top 6, top 9, you've got like average heights of like 6'1", 6'2", and these guys are running like they're playing weight as well, right? Like Hagens was drafted, his playing weight at the time was like 186. Like he was a little bit of a chunkier build for a guy at that size. Like he's a little bit more truculent, right? But a 5'11", 186 guy going up against a 6'2", 6'3" guy that's 210, 215. Like you're going up against these guys that are 2 bills plus, and it's not like an NFL like 2 bills plus where the guy's like got some like baby fat to him. Like, no, these guys are like, when it's two bills, it's like a solid rock. Like you're going up against a fire hydrant that's 6'2", 6'3", right? And like a super skilled, fast, mobile. Like the way the NHL just works is different gravy, boys. So that's where it gets a little bit tough. But yeah, back on that note, like, was it the right decision? Was it the wrong decision? Like ultimately, whatever the Bruins did this year, it would have been the wrong decision in the eyes of the fans, right? Like if all things went the same and the Bruins didn't tender him his ELC this year, oh, what a garbage move by Sweeney and Evan Gold, the AGM that's interviewing with the Vancouver Canucks right now, who got passed up on the job because he wasn't willing to take a little bit of a cut compared to what his expectations are. But I digest on that front. We won't talk dirty about Evan Gold because those are just reports. I'm not in the room, so I don't know if it's true. Um, but yeah, it's like, unfortunately, if your team gets bounced in the fashion that they do by Buffalo, and scoring's the key issue for that team, and you have a guy like Hagens waiting out on the flanks, like just sitting there, marinating in the P Bruins system, you're like, well, dang, we could have used this guy. But then you bring Hagens in. He's not that impact maker. You lose anyways. You burn the year of the contract. Well, now it's like, well, we burnt the year of the contract, and that's the problem with Boston sports fans, right? Like you guys can't just like sit with your thoughts. Like something's always wrong. Something's always not good enough. Like all those titles, all those championships, like every other year there's a new champion to claim and to announce in the city. Oh, not good enough. Like he's a, 19, 20-year-old guy. He's still super young. He's got a long way to go to adjust. I'd wait and see what the end of this contract looks like. Like if I'm a Boston fan or anyone in that market, if I work in the media side in Boston, because I know all summer this is going to be something that you guys are ripping into and trying to, it's like you're opening Pandora's box here. Like, do we burn the front office now? Do we remove everybody because they made the wrong decision here? Um, the biggest thing that I would caution is just like, you've made the right pick. It was the best pick, clearly, for the organization. You want best player, that was the best player, unless you think McQueen was the best player. But with the injury history and Boston's lack of picks over the past couple of years leading into that, and their dire need for like a top 15 positional guy, Hagens was that guy. So you're getting a top 15 winger, a guy that's a super competitive kid, has a good head on his shoulders, good family, has no Bo Callahan issues, right? Like you guys are BC students, I'm a BC student. We're walking around that campus. Never heard any ill words towards James Hagens. Like nothing but great stuff from anybody, from the janitors at Connie Farm, Kelly to the sorority girls at the neighboring schools, to anything in between, right? Like that's a very opposite spectrum that I just gave you guys there. But that's the point, right? Like these kids that go to the University of Michigan, that go to the University of Minnesota, like this is a long tangent and I'll wrap a bow on it. Like a guy like Logan Cooley, for example, who's playing for Utah right now. Like you circle around the University of Minnesota, the Gophers program and stuff, and you can hear a thing or two get sprinkled in about some of these kids that are at these institutions that leave early. But a kid like Hagens that left, he did his service. He came back for an additional year. Will Smith never did that. Local kid, 30 minutes away, dreamed to play for Boston College, bounces after a year. Right decision, still hurt like hell. Hagens didn't do that. He came back, subpar roster. Let's be real here, gentlemen. Like no disrespect to those guys, they're much better hockey players than I'll ever be in my life. That's for sure. But that roster was not built to compete with your Michigans, your Michigan States, your Quinnipiacs. Even like it was touch and go throughout the season. Goaltending was an issue. The blue line was a glaring issue. It's tough. You just got to be patient. And with Hagens, I'd wait until that final year of his ELC's up, and you don't know like until it happens. But when that final season happens and he's eligible for the extension, like heading into that final year, even in July, if he pans out and you can get him signed to an affordable 7 year deal, like relative to what the market's going towards and where it's trending, it's a home run. But obviously, like if it doesn't work out, you're still getting a top six forward. Like, people, they assume crazy stuff. Like, there's no way you're gonna pick a kid off like a college campus, put him in an NHL lineup, and you're like, hey, this is the Buffalo Sabres. They haven't played playoff hockey in 400 years. Beat this city. You can't beat the city of Buffalo. Montreal's figuring it out right now. Like, these are two deprived fan bases, two primed organizations that have been doing the hardest thing in like professional sports, regressing to the mean, tearing it down to the studs, and slowly, patiently, methodically building it all up. And it's reached this boiling point where you've got these two dynamic, like, titans right now, juggernauts in hockey, that are just absolutely smashing into each other, killing each other on the ice. And Boston, just like, simply put, was not meant to be in that equation this year. Unreal roster. They've got McAvoy. McAvoy played through so much stuff. They had Swayman. Swayman was one of the largest reasons why that team made the playoffs. Let's be real here. And then they've got Pasternak, right? Like, without those three players, this team does not even sniff the postseason. Like, if Swayman was injured for a 10-game stretch at any random point in the year while he was hot, you're not making the playoffs. So take it for what it is, gentlemen. It's like Philadelphia. Philadelphia made the playoffs this year. They had a 3% chance towards the end of the stretch here. They even had some nice t-shirts about it. They came in, they beat the
I
Pittsburgh Penguins, and then that's it. They got swept by the Carolina Hurricanes. That's life. That's baseball.
I got to give you something about the Flyers real quick, Alex, and I want to get your opinion real quick about who you think's gonna be, representing the East and the West in the Stanley Cup final. I think it's probably lining up to be the Avs and the Hurricanes, but you can tell me otherwise. But
One of them's correct.
okay, it's probably the Hurricanes, and maybe the Avs might fall to the Knights. We'll see, but we'll see. I don't know. Okay, I'll leave your opinion there. But one funny thing to note on the Flyers, we actually made a lot of the playoff shirts for them at 47, and I don't know if you saw like the Believe shirts and like the We Believe or whatever. We had this
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. We had this great design for them, and this is just the life of sports that I think is just a funny lesson to be learned. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Not saying we did, but we shipped a lot more that we thought were going to be at that arena for games 5 and 6, which did not happen, and they were not happy with that result. So I they lost in four. They had a great
Yeah. Oh, I
year.
know.
I'm very happy for them, but
Yeah.
it sucks to get swept, and that's all I know about the Flyers guys. I just
Yeah.
know they were very pissy about their shirts.
And that's a team that picked sixth last year. So they picked Porter Martone sixth. He went to MSU. The kid popped off, signed his deal, and then immediately made the lineup, integrated really well. There was a funny story about him and getting his immigration sorted out because he was a similar situation to me, right? He's in the US as a student, and now you're signing a pro deal with a US based team, and you can't really go from being a student to being an employee, full-time employee, according to the US government, the IRS, the next day. So it took them like they had to move mountains. Like, I got to chop it up with the director of analytics, for example, for the Flyers in Denver for an analytics conference at the end of March. And they were still trying to figure out, a week plus after Martone and Michigan State was eliminated from the NCAA tournament, like how to get this kid integrated into the lineup, right? Like, everybody knows he's signing. They're just waiting for when he's cleared by the US government to do so. It's a very funny sport for that reason. Like, the loopholes that these guys, not the loopholes, but the hoops that you have to jump through to make a competitive roster. And I think, like, putting a bow on the whole Boston situation, like, for a team that's been competing, like, you look since 2011, like how often that team has been in a very good position since winning that cup against the Canucks that you guys, for better or worse, stole from the country of Canada, and led to even worse luck in this country since then. Um, Like you guys have missed the playoffs less than I have fingers on this hand. And I'm not that child that was born with the fin hand the other day with the four fingers. I've got five fingers. You guys have, I think, a total of five times max since 2011 missed the Stanley Cup. Whereas the Vancouver Canucks, I could count with three fingers how many times they've made the Stanley Cup playoffs since that year, right? Maybe four. We'll give them four. Like I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's a tough one, right? Like you got to be happy for what you're given. Like the Boston Bruins have been a very stable and competitive team that have run lean in terms of their assets for a decade plus. And they now have this primo chip in James Hagens, where whether he pans out or doesn't pan out, it's a development issue, not a like pick issue. Like the pick was a phenomenal pick. It's a home run. You take it, you run. And it was such a good pick that the New York Islanders they had picks later on. I think it was like two picks back to back in the mid teens where they selected Kayshawn Aitchison and Victor Eklund from Sweden. They were willing to package those picks to get Hagens at 7. So it was a home run of a pick. Now, obviously, he's not, you can't rely on one or two people to win you a Stanley Cup, no less win you a game in the playoffs. Like the playoffs are different gravy, gentlemen. It's not like the MLB playoffs. Like playing the NHL playoffs, like if you're watching any game, like right now, we've got track meet hockey between the Colorado Avalanche, my Stanley Cup favorites, and the Minnesota Wild. And like it's a 3-1 hockey game right now. Like Colorado had their goaltender chased. They had to bring in their backup goaltender who was their starter earlier in the playoffs. Like a lot of dynamic storylines happening here, folks. But um yeah, like out west, basically going into the end of your question there, Sam. Like Colorado's my like Stanley Cup favorite, so they win the West unless some crazy stuff happens and people get injured, which you never like to see. Out east, it's between Montreal and Carolina.
Mm. You
I
don't
have
think Buffalo
Montreal
has a
beating
chance at
Buffalo.
beating?
I think that ends in 7. I think Montreal gets it though, because unfortunately it comes down to this guy's goaltending. They're very similar teams. They're built in a very similar way. Buffalo has really good defensemen. Like Buffalo's blue line is embarrassing right now. Like they have just like they're loaded. But the problem is that you're missing like some nights they have like a guy like they traded former first round prospect, a pick, and another asset for two defensemen out of Winnipeg, Logan Stanley and Luke Shen. And any given night in the week, one of these guys is sitting up out of the lineup. Like that's how deep this team is right now and how little space they have, depending on the type of strategy that they're running on a nightly basis. Montreal, on the other hand, they have Lane Hudson, and this guy is just like silk on skates, man. Like you think that this guy, like he's such a tiny guy. There's a photo. I'll send it to you guys later in the group chat. But he took a photo next to a Canadian basketball player that's like 8 feet tall almost, and this kid comes up to his kneecap. And this is like one of the top three defensemen currently in not in the NHL but in the NHL playoffs. How he's been playing, and then they have one of the hottest goaltenders in the NHL right now, heating up at the perfect time. And it's kind of a position like a running back in football, for example. Like, a guy like Saquon Barkley, like he might be, not to shoot you guys with that, but like we'll compare it to that because it's an impactful statement that I'm about to make, hopefully. A guy like Saquon Barkley, right? Like you don't want to pay your running back however much Saquon netted with the Eagles, right? But if you pay the guy and the guy has the type of showing in the season and the postseason that he had with the Eagles, that's crazy value. So it's the same thing with an NHL goaltender, right? Like right now, this kid that plays for Montreal, Jakob Dovich, probably the hottest goaltender in the NHL that's playing in the postseason. Like he's capable of stealing a series for them. They just beat Tampa Bay. And he beat like one of the best goaltenders that's bound for the Hall of Fame in Andrei Vasilevsky. Like this guy's got the size, he's got the technical ability, he's able to shut you down. And with goaltenders, like if you ever have the chance to talk to a goalie, like it's a team sport, but you're competing against the other goaltender. Like you don't care about your team. If your team misses a shot, that's fine. What's the score? That's what you care about. If you're losing 1-0, that guy has made one more save than you have. So you got to get that save back. So that's what it is. You're going shot for shot. Like you're sitting at a bar, like you're in Ireland somewhere, and someone's saying, "Hey," for all the guys in Boston that have this dream of going back to Ireland and saying that they're like, 1/17th Irish and they're drinking at the bar. The locals go shot for shot, and it's like, all right, you do a shot of this, I'll do a shot of this. You keep going back and forth until one guy's under the table, right? That's NHL goaltending for you. Like if it goes to double overtime, triple overtime, and these goaltenders are making 60, 70 saves, so be it. You just got to make one more save than the other guy.
You're right. That's the beauty of
Great point.
hockey, right? The sudden death, especially in the playoffs. That's the beauty of playoff hockey.
Yeah.
One bounce of the puck.
Yeah. And we saw it in the Olympics, man. We saw it in the Olympics. Like it's raw, it's like long removed now, but that's what it was. Like Connor Hellebuck, just one more save.
Yeah. And we were fortunate on our end, especially with how loaded of a roster Canada had. And that
Yeah.
brings me, and you made a great point when you said it's really hard to please Boston fans. You're right. Whether they signed James Hagens to an entry-level contract or didn't, it was going to be the wrong move
Hmm.
in the eyes of the fans. And I think that's the best way to put it at the end of the day. I didn't think of that when
Yeah.
I came up with that question, but I think you're absolutely right, honestly. I think that is how people would see it. And I know Bruins fans are upset with how the NHL Draft Lottery played out, which I don't want to hold you guys too long, maybe another like 15 minutes, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how the draft lottery shook out and how you think maybe the top 8 to 10 picks will play out, Alex.
So I'm in a fantasy hockey league, as you guys know. And my team finished last. And what we do is, since we're anti-corruption in our league, and some of us are from, former Soviet countries and Slavic bloc countries, such as myself, they fear about corruption, right? And what would happen. And so what we thought was the most neutral way of doing it, rather than have some guy do a Google Sheets to draw all the lottery numbers for all of our teams that were in the draft lottery, or do it through like Tankathon. Or I don't know if you guys use Tankathon for the NFL and the NBA, but it seems like it's kind of clunky and it doesn't actually reflect the actual odds. Like it doesn't seem, there's all these intricacies of the lottery balls, right?
Mhm.
And it never feels like when you lose the lottery in Tankathon, like you were one ball away.
Mhm.
Whereas in real life, you literally are one ball away. Like it goes to the final ball, and then it's like whatever number you take, that's the combo, and you're either the happiest fan base in the world or it's rigged and it's all against you. So on that note, I had the same odds as the Canucks naturally. So I was, selfish. I was hoping that the Canucks would win the lottery so I could pick first.
Mhm.
But being a Canucks fan growing up and following this team post 2011 like a hawk, this team has never won anything in the lottery. They have never moved up in the lottery order. They have always exclusively moved down. They have the worst luck. And you can quote me on this. You could put this on a billboard. The Vancouver Canucks have the worst lottery luck in the modern day NHL since the lottery was introduced in its current form. This team is like, even before the last 4 or 5 years where they're like, oh, you can only slide X amount. Like they put that in there because the Canucks used to slide, like, you have like top two odds, you slide down to pick four, pick five. Like when we selected Quinn Hughes, we slid so far back. When McDavid was a draft pick that could have been had, Buffalo was crying because they finished second. Vancouver was crying because we're like, well, how come we can't get lucky? How come Edmonton jumps? Edmonton had like 17 first overall picks in a row, and somehow they get McDavid. Like, what the hell's going on? So that was a really tragic thing. Obviously, seeing Toronto win it, like literally, Toronto hasn't made the lottery in like 10 plus, 10 years almost. They've not missed the postseason. Like they've just been in this consistent go 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 type of timeline. And the first time they miss the playoffs, they win the lottery. So that's kind of a stinger. For Canucks fans, especially, there's this whole rivalry in Canada where everybody hates Toronto. So it's kind of like New York City. Like everybody that's not from New York hates New York, especially if you're from these big sports markets. So the fact that Canada has only so few sports markets and they all happen to be the major cities in Canada, we all universally hate on Toronto, but they don't hate on us. That's the sad part. Like Toronto hates on like Boston, the Rangers. They hate, Montreal. They hate like the original six teams. And then when they think about the Canucks, they're like, oh, it's cheaper to go to Vancouver, rent a hotel room or Airbnb and watch a Canucks game. And there's a cool Costco across the street. Like they love going to Vancouver, right? They don't care. But we're like, never come back to our city again, eh? Like you guys are bad. Like you guys have awful highways that go through the middle of your city. So that was tough. Then obviously seeing San Jose jump up from like I think 8 or 9 to pick second, like that really stung. But in terms of how that shakes up the draft order, it positions the Canucks like they won the first overall pick, basically, because you've got Toronto. Toronto came out on the record and they said that they needed a defenseman during the first introductory interview that the GM was making. Problem with that is your BPA at number one, like whether you go McKenna or Stenberg, neither of them can play defense, right? So it opens a path for them to maybe trade back. I don't think that they will. I think they're forced, given the demands of the market in Canada, especially in Toronto being like peak. You have to make that pick. So they probably go McKenna. Now, do I think McKenna's the right pick? No, I think Stenberg's the right pick. Because I would have picked him if I was the Canucks. I would have picked him if I was picking first. Because Stenberg is just a complete player. He put up like historic numbers in Sweden playing against pro competition. You mentioned my model earlier. We don't need to go into the nitty gritty of it, but if you were to compare his season to what like the projection is for him to play, like if he played the same amount of games with the same quality of teammates as Gavin McKenna, he would have put up like 15 more points than Gav in the NCAA. So in terms of production and this eliteness, I think Stenberg's actually a sneaky guy that's underrated. I don't know what happens in my fantasy league. Like I have a pulse on it and I know who's going to pick who. So I'm pretty happy with who I get at 3. But like in real life, the draft starts at number 2 because number 1, you're like Toronto, whoever they pick, they're taking one of the wingers. Awesome. Those are the 2 top players.
Mm-hmm.
Who San Jose picks at number 2, that matters all the most because San Jose the past 5-6 years have been picking top 5 pick upon top 5 pick upon top 5 pick with a 15, 20, 25, 30 range pick always sprinkled in. So it's not just the one guy that they're selecting. They always have 2 to 3 other guys that they select in the top 45 along with the top 5 picks. So they have Celebrini, they've got Will Smith, they've got Michael Misa. Those 3 guys were drafted as centers. Will Smith plays on the wing. Misa plays as a center. So you've got 2 centers right there in Celebrini and Misa. You've got Will Smith on one wing. You could complete the other wing with Ivar Stenberg. That's a home run pick. Or Gavin McKenna, depending on who's available. But they haven't been drafting defensemen. And they have a left shot defenseman, Sam Dickinson, selected out of the CHL a couple years back. But he plays on the left side. He's not like your number 1. He's like your number 2. This year, you have a number of guys that you can select that might be a number 1 defenseman, and that's your power play quarterback. So that's the guy that's dishing the puck. And the beauty of hockey, unlike the NFL, if you're making a pick in the top 5 and you do it right, that guy can stay with your franchise and play 1,000+ games. And if he plays 1,000+ games for your team, that's a home run that only like 100 or less picks of that caliber have been made. And the odds are like they're, if you look at like guys that have played 1,000+ games, it's like 100 or less. Like it's a very small list. But then to make it even worse and like even more extreme of a statistic here for you guys, like, and this is the craziest part that I will like share right now. It's so mind-boggling because it's like so few players have met that milestone, but so few players have done that for the same team. So if you can select that at number 2, and that's a defenseman, you already have your forwards. They've got another guy that they drafted top 15 a couple years ago in William Eklund, who's a left winger. So you've got Misa, Smith, Eklund, Celebrini. You've got Quentin Musty, who they drafted a couple years ago, pretty big winger that can play second line, third line minutes. Really good guy. Like he can skate pretty well. You've got Chernyshov, who's also a winger, can play really well. And then you've got just an embarrassment of riches in the bottom six that is so easy to replenish, given the assets that they have. It's kind of like an OKC system. So they have to go goal. They have to go defenseman, not goaltender. Sorry, they have to go defenseman here. They're locked into it physically. Like if they go any other pick defenseman, there's not going to be a Vancouver Canucks style like riot happening in the streets of San Jose, California. But there's going to be a lot of angry letters being sent and a lot of people boycotting season tickets because you have the easiest pick in selecting right shot defenseman Chase Reed. Or if you trade back and you accumulate more draft picks, which could be a style that they do if they're not convinced that Chase Reed is their guy, you slide back a couple picks. You make people think that you're going to go winger unless they trade for that pick. And you force another team to essentially pay you out to make that selection rather than forcing you into it, right? So, like, for example, if I think, and this is where strategy and like playing poker kind of matters a lot. So, shout out New Jersey Devils GM Sonny Meda, who's a poker player that wrote a book on like poker strategy. But I digest. That's a topic for off the pod. But you want to make these teams think that you're just going to go BPA and screw up their draft philosophy, right? So, for example, Vancouver's picking at 3. Maybe you somehow manipulate Vancouver into thinking you're going to take the guy that they might want at 2. That won't happen. Vancouver's going to stick at 3, I'm pretty sure. Like they're happy with the kid they're getting at Caleb Malholtra at 3. But then at 4, you've got Chicago, right? And Chicago really wants a winger that can play with Connor Bedard. So you trick them into thinking that you're going to go Stenberg or McKenna, whoever's available. Chicago pays you out. They give you a draft pick. They give you a former first round pick and Kevin Korchinski, who's stuck in the AHL developing. He's a tweener type guy. And it justifies them sliding back a couple spots. And then that's where they select the defenseman. And if you're picking at 4 and you're not convinced with Chase Reed, who plays in the OHL right now, you can select Keaton Verhoff, who started as one of the youngest guys in college hockey, played right shot D for North Dakota, and they were a Frozen 14. So a lot of strategy, a lot of shake and bake there. But essentially, the top 5 guys, in my opinion, are, and the way that it shakes out on draft day really depends, but it's Stenberg, number 1, McKenna, number 2. Then you've got Caleb Malholtra, the center, number 3. Number 4 would be Chase Reed. Number 5, Carson Carls, in my opinion. Left shot defenseman, WHL out here in Canada. He'll probably go number 6 to Calgary or number 5 to New York Rangers, depending on who's available and how the board shakes out. But literally, like, this is the year where, one, I think we're going to see a major trade involving picks and the top 5 happens. We haven't seen that before. The closest we've seen to that happening was 2 years ago when Philadelphia traded one spot down. They traded from like 12 to 13, and Minnesota traded up one spot. They paid like a tiny little addition just so they could select a defenseman there. And now that defenseman's been traded to Vancouver. So we haven't seen a top 5 pick get moved in ages. And this is the year where I strongly believe there's reason for that to happen. And if not, that means that San Jose is selecting a defenseman at number 2, which is crazy.
Wow.
Because it's just asset management.
I think you're right. The defense is really needed there. So adding a forward, especially considering how highly regarded some of those forwards are they already have, like Celebrini, like I've said before, if I was starting a franchise today, he'd be my first pick. I don't know as hockey as well as you do, Alex, but I'm sure you probably have a lot of guys that you could consider taking first. I just think Celebrini, I watch him play, he's the best player I see, especially at his age.
Hey, you're not wrong, man. I'd like to agree with you on that one. Like a lot of these teams, when you look at how they're built, and I won't go into like any crazy tinfoil hat like tangents like I was earlier, but when you're looking at how teams are built, it's the spine, right? So you're not building out off to the side. Like it's not a torso. It's not like just like arms and no torso. Like you're building it with centers down the ice. Like you need your number 1 center, you need your number 2 center, Ideally, for a playoff team, you need three highly capable, talented, versatile centers. You also need four very good defensemen, one defenseman that is offensively competent, like a Cale Makar or a Lane Hudson in Montreal, or a Rasmus Dahlin in Buffalo, or a Quinn Hughes in Minnesota, but I tried not to say it. So you need that type of guy followed by like an even keel, like two-way, slightly more defensively competent guy. Not to say that these guys suck defensively, but that's not their focus, right? Like you want these guys to pinch into the play, jump up in, which kind of creates a risk, like because they're leaving their post. So it creates kind of the option for a team to funnel it through that open channel and have the odd man break go the other way. And the way that the NHL is geared right now, it's as skilled and as fast as it's ever been before. So when you have a guy jump up in the play like that to contribute offensively, if you don't have a Devin Taves like in Colorado to step up and help out with your Cale Makar stepping up into the play, you run the risk of that biting you and having it turn out to what's happening right now, where it's track meet hockey, where that's exactly how these two teams are fighting each other. Like they're forcing the goaltenders to shift around a little bit too much. So they're showing them, like, for example, with the Colorado guys, their goaltenders have been getting exposed by Minnesota, which you wouldn't think because they're winning 3-1 in this series. But what they're doing is they're taking the extra step inside towards the middle, and it's forcing the goaltenders to move laterally just a little bit, where they're not necessarily off center, but they're not in their traditional spot that they would be if the skater never moved inwards one extra stride or one extra beat. So it creates like just the tiniest, a little bit like more of an opening for them to expose. And with the way shooters are in the NHL these days, guys, like if they can pick a cookie off the shelf, they will with the puck, like easily. Like 9 times out of 10, some of these guys could do that, like laser accuracy. So we're seeing that in that series, and that's in my opinion like the most entertaining series we have. But that's how you build a team, right? It's a couple good centers, one or two really, really capable wingers. Outside of that, like in your forward group, you need defensively competent guys, you need some size. There's an argument currently in like team building philosophy whether you need your size at the top of your lineup versus at the bottom of your lineup. Because at the bottom, like, there's not these 6'5" and above, 6'3" and above, let's say, forwards in the NHL, and same with defensemen. Like, they're very rare. These guys don't grow on trees, right? Like if they did, the whole league would be 6 foot whatever and above, but that isn't the case. So when you have these very commanding physical individuals, no matter where they play in the lineup, they command a premium. But if they're at the top of the lineup, the premium's like a little bit less of a premium than like at the bottom. Like let's say I am a fourth line player and I'm 5'11" and I play on the penalty kill. I make roughly, 1.5 to 2.25 million a year US. If I am like in the prime of my career, if I'm a right shot guy and my metrics are off the charts and I play for like a non-Colorado type team that isn't running lean and I'm playing for like a Vancouver, 1.5 to 2.25 depending on my agent's acumen and when I signed the deal in the context of it, whether I was with the team, whether they traded for me, or whether I was an FA. That's what we're looking at. If I am now 6'3" and above, same build, we're getting closer to the $3 million range and above. And I might even play a little bit further up in the lineup. I might be on the third line, and they might even try to put the center that's in the middle on the third line off to the wing because they can justify it a little bit more easily. So there's a little bit of these hidden biases that we have, but essentially, gentlemen, it all boils into this like decision making complex and roster making philosophy that's obviously far from perfect. And if you look at all of the playoff teams, like some of these elements I touched on, like some of these teams have it in spades and some of these teams really don't. Like if you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, I mean, they're a really well built team, but do they have that like Quinn Hughes type guy on the blue line? No. Do they have that separating goaltender? No. They have Freddie Anderson who's on a heater right now, but he is not like your number. He's old. He's an old guy. He's injury prone. He's had like really bad like Jordan Binnington, Connor Hellebuck level numbers from the regular season. Like he was touch and go, and he just heated up at the right moment. So it's literally a combination of the spine of your team, general cap flexibility, and overall like structure and versatility of the players matters a lot offensively. Defensively, you need a gunslinger on your top pair that's like super, super good, like a Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar. Like those guys don't grow on trees. They don't exist. There's maybe 10 of these guys in the league at most. But if you find one of those guys, you're in that window. And then if you could complete that blue line with a couple of complementary pieces, like a nice stable guy to pair with that number one guy. And then on your second pairing, you have two guys that are a little bit, 50-50. Like they can do a little bit of everything, but not at the level of the guys on pairing one. You've got some motion there. And then if you have a goaltender that can just make one more save than the guy across the ice from him and maybe throw an extra punch if they ever get into a goalie fight, which we always love to see, then you're cooking with some bacon and grease there, boys. So, but I digest.
That's top tier insight from a future NHL GM right there. That's great.
Oh, I don't
I
know
think I have
about
to.
that part, but
Team.
I think we have to pay for this insight because I
no.
think we're getting some NHL secrets.
We are.
No,
We
dude,
are
no
top tier
secrets. No,
insight.
no secrets, man. Trust me, I have not leaked any secrets.
That's good. All right. That's good. Yeah. No secrets are, being, let
They're
out here to the
vaulted,
public.
buddy.
So you'll keep your sources obviously secret and no one will be upset. So it's all good. But, obviously you did just bring a lot of insight into what you think builds, winning franchise, not a team that can win just one year, but can, have year to year success. You obviously built a model, like we already mentioned, the college hockey model, which essentially is an NCAA hockey equivalency and prospect
Yeah.
projection database. And I know you said you want to get to the nitty gritty of it, which is absolutely fine. So I just have real one question about it. And then I have a question for each of you guys before we close. But the one question I have about the database is, what was your motivation behind it, and how difficult was it trying to compare all these different leagues, all these different players, and all these metrics that you were using to try to compare each of them?
So I don't really think about the difficulty too much. Like it's actually a silly thing. Like you'd think that someone would think about it, but it all started like, dude, straight up just a conversation in a BC classroom, right? Like I'm coming down from Canada. There's this whole potential shift where perhaps Canadians are soon to be eligible to play in the US. We don't know at the time. Like I started August of 2024, guys. So like this was before November when everything shifted on that front. And me and two fellow classmates at BC in the sports survey class, Dr. Keller's class, Connor Courier, massive Minnesota Wild fan, massive Houston Texans fan, lives down in Texas now after graduating. And Nick Bisconti, local guy to Boston, hockey guy through and through with the BHA, Boston Hockey Academy, doing the Lord's work out over there with them. We were just shooting the breeze after one of these classes when we had guest speakers in, and it happened to be the panel where we had hockey guys. And I asked a question. I brought up stuff. One of the guys played with Braden Point in one of the junior leagues out here, and not a high tier league at all, right? Like, but I mean, like pretty competitive, but it wasn't like the WHL or like the OHL. Like it was a level below that. And these guys were like, at the end of class when we were talking, they were like, okay, well, these guys are almost eligible. News is coming out. They're like, okay, well, which one of these guys could actually play for BC? And I listed off like 15 guys off the top of my dome. I was like, well, if this opens up, you're looking at all the first round, second round, third round guys that are eligible for the NHL draft this year. Then on top of that, you're looking at guys that are overagers, right? Like you don't need a guy that's a first overall pick to be an impact guy in the NCAA. Like the guys that I have an unhealthy obsession with are the TJ Hugheses of the world, like the guy that was, captain of the Michigan World Wolverines. Unfortunately, their season ended too soon, but he signed with the Colorado Avalanche as a free agent. He was one of the older guys in the league. but nothing was given to him. He had to take every inch of the ice, and he had to take every opportunity that was given to him and run with it. And there's going to be more stories like that, right? Where these guys ascend into the league, and it's, 20-year-old, 21-year-old guy from Canada, was passed over two times for the draft, not eligible to get drafted anymore, not good enough to get signed as a free agent outright. UMass Lowell's offering him a contract. Come do your education here. Be a Riverhawk. Come to the place of Connor Hellebuck, the temple that built the US gold medal hero of 2025-26. And obviously there's some changes to eligibility, so there's a little bit of fluidity here. But anyways, that's how it all started. Like, it was just shooting the breeze with some classmates, and then afterwards I was like, this would be a really fun project for me to do. So I was like, how would I go about this? And I started ripping like a Google Sheets like the next day and tracking all this stuff and making these manual coefficients and whatever, and trying to make these like connections between the leagues. But I quickly found out like there was no chance I was going to do it with Excel or with Google Sheets, right? Like, you need thousands of bits of information. So that speaks to the difficulty of it. Like, it's not easy to do without some technical ability. And it took me starting off with sports analytics, like hardcore classes within BC's like analytics program, to like learn how to do some of this stuff. So first I started off on a software called R. It's a pretty good statistical analysis software, so that kind of made me familiar with like how to structure data and play around with it and manipulate it and make these, models that people call. Um, and then over time, like, I got a little bit more comfortable with it, and obviously I'd shoot a question to AI every so often and be like, hey, like, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, how can I make a website, right? Like, I'm not good at coding in HTML in order to make a website. So I'm like, I'm looking to make a website. These are my specifications. Like, I have all this data. I don't want to release a paper, like an academic paper, boring people's minds out, being like, oh, these are my formulas and this is what it is. Like, I'd rather show it, right? Like, I'd love for someone to be able to do like even just a head-to-head comparison on two guys. And over time, like, this was like a yearly side project for me since September. And obviously just recently I released it. And I mean, yeah, it's got some motion, and a lot of people have gotten eyes on it. And obviously some comments good, some comments not so good. Like, everyone's got their own preferences, but it was my first like solo thing that I did start to finish, my own idea that came from a Boston College classroom, right? So it'll always be a special project for me, but I do have some stuff that I can't speak to what I'm doing like on this. But once the recording's done, I'll give you guys a quick 5 second snippet of what I'm working on, and it's juicy.
Awesome, dude. I think everything you just pointed out too is the beauty of the BC, the sports administration program, and then sports analytics is
Mm,
there are a lot of people that are willing to help you. And then there's obviously classmates like us three connected, all just being part of the program. There's a lot of beauty of being, at BC. And this idea obviously came, about because of you being in a classroom with people that love hockey and love sports. So this is
yeah,
obviously something you did on your own though, right? You took this project based on that idea and then, built it, for a lot of hours, a lot of
yeah.
days, months, basically years to put this all
Dude, a
together.
lot of phone calls too. Like, on that note, like, just the amount of people I consulted with it, like, I like, like, it was my excuse kind of for some of the classes. Like, every class has like networking requirements, right? So we had Dr. Utschneider's class, sport leadership in the fall I took, and she had like the goal setting to be a leader. And I was like, well, my goal setting is I want to get better at talking to people that scare me. So people that work in and around hockey. And then my second goal was obviously to work on the technical side of being a sports analytics student at BC, which was to actually, you know, do some analytics. Like, don't just like dig into hockey and just watch the games as part of my current gig, but like go beyond that, right? Like, look at the numbers, play around with the numbers, try and make some connections on your own, right? Without the training wheels. And through that, like, I got to meet, directors of analytics for like NCAA hockey programs, like they were talking to me about it and they were like really curious about getting the data. So that actually reminds me, like I got to send text messages to some of these guys with the links to it and stuff and access. But um, yeah, like it taught me that the world is a lot smaller than it actually like feels. Cause like I talked to, an embarrassing group of people that were well beyond what I should have had access to. And it was because of something like this, right? But I think that goes to show like it's just like the circle of life. Like you don't have to be the biggest professional or the most polished person. I mean, like you could take any of my tangents here and clip them and send it to a random media person in the world, and they'll be like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. This guy just rambles, right? But you still get a large demographic of people out there that are just like certified beauties that'll guide you in the right direction. And for me, like my first ever person that I reached out to is the director of hockey analytics for Sport Logic out here in Canada in Quebec, and they're one of the main data providers for the NHL. They work with 31 of the 32 teams. And I asked him, I was like, hey, like I'm working with this like giant idea, but I have no clue where to start. What are some tips? And he literally like, hockey analytics for dummies on LinkedIn. Like he was just sending me back and forth like little notes being like, don't do this, do this. Like if you're working with the data on injuries, like avoid it because there's so like how are you going to measure injuries? Like do you have that data? Like he gave me a full A to Z guideline of what to do. And then I told him a little bit of what I wanted to do, and it led to a different conversation. He's like, reach out to this guy at this university in Canada. Like this guy knows his stuff and he works with the guy that works for this team in the NHL. Like they might have interest in helping you. And down the rabbit hole, like, any good YouTube rabbit hole or Instagram reels or TikTok reels or whatever you call it, where you just keep scrolling, like turned into one of those fascinations, right? So
Dude, it's
yeah.
it's really impressive all the work you put in. You have a lot to be proud of, and I admire how much time, effort, energy you put into it because now you look at the finished product and it really is a beautiful thing. And I think that's, like I said, the beauty of the program at BC. There's something there for
Yeah.
everyone. If you want to work in sports, there's people there that want to help you, and then some of those connections will build into other connections right elsewhere. And I think this project you have though is really going to take off. I really think they're going to be hockey executives, not just in college hockey. I think professional hockey, they're going to find it, hear about it, and I think it's going to get you a job one day to be in a front office in the NHL. And then one day, like Sam and I say, the future NHL GMs, Alexander Djordjevic, you maybe will be the GM of the Bruins one day. We'll see. But I do think you're a future NHL GM. And I think this insight that you bring in here is really special. And I wouldn't even say it's rambling. Like your ability to talk about the game of hockey at such a high level is something you have a lot to be proud of, genuinely. Like, and to be able to hear it, it's a pleasure on my end. And I'm sure Sam would say the exact same, right, Sam?
Yeah, I mean you're a natural when it comes to the stuff, Alex. And also, if you ever did become specifically the GM of the Bruins, we all know you would draft James Hagens at number 6. So we understand that philosophy.
I would have made a trade, but that's just me.
Okay. Who would
I'm
you
a
have
sucker
traded?
for a good trade, boys. I would have traded up
Oh,
or I would have traded back and accumulated.
but no staying put.
No, no, because it's too
You want to
much
have
risk
fun.
on one pick, right? Like I would have done that if I was Vancouver as well. Like if Gavin, if like let's say, and this was kind of what I was hypothesizing in my own fantasy league. Like if Vancouver wins and thus I win because I was tied to their pick in our universe. Um, if McKenna's not my number one guy and one team feels that McKenna's the number one guy and like I feel like there's no wrong choice in going down, but someone thinks there is a wrong choice and there's a right choice in keeping the pick and taking Gavin. Like if they want to incentivize me to package away and let them make that decision, like all the power to you, right? So I would have done that if I was the Canucks and I won the lottery. I would have done that with my team in my fantasy league if I won it. Not the Canucks, but it's Pittsburgh in this league. But what it looks totally different than the real life team. Although we did sign a couple people that overlap, but that's a tangent for another time. But same thing with Hagens, right? Like I talked about it because we had this one conversation where it was Halloween and we showed up dressed as the referees for the Western Michigan game.
Oh
And
yeah.
there was like 30 NHL executives,
We-
including Brett Peterson of the Florida Panthers, like assistant GM and BC alumni. And it's us and unnamed people from our friend group, need not dox names, but they're saying,
We're all
"Oh,
wearing
James
refs.
Hagens is the best guy to ever step foot on this sheet of ice at Boston College. Like he's going number one." And I'm like listing off three or four people. And they're like, "No way, man. We're gonna go to East Boston and you don't know what you're or South Boston, you don't know what you're talking about." And then obviously you flash forward and it's like you hate to be right about stuff like this because he's a great guy, but
You
in
nailed
in
it.
his draft year, like he felt the need to prove himself too many times, right? And for me, like there was a lot of self projection into that. Like whenever I was talking to hockey guys, like I talked to a guy that's a CHL GM, and I tried to talk to him on such a level that was like, hey, like us equivalent hockey minds, like shooting the breeze, right? And it rubs people the wrong way. Like if you're coming from, like it's like the high ground in Star Wars, like Obi-Wan versus Anakin. Like if the hubris of Anakin, like doing that double summer flip or whatever, trying to hack at Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan just slices and dices him down the middle like it's Fruit Ninja. Like if he didn't have the hubris to think that he could pull that off on such a like legend, he would have probably never been Darth Vader, right? And he probably still would have been because Padme. But anyways, I won't nerd out here. But same thing goes with these conversations. Like with that one gentleman who was a CHL GM, I'm like trying to like discuss all these high end topics and like get information from him on them. But I'm like trying to prove myself to him. Like I'm already on the call. He knows who I am. He knows me through a few people from my personal life. Like he's already sold on me enough to give me 15 to 20 minutes of his day after the end of a busy in-season week that he's taken away from his like family and his kids, right? And I'm like trying to like justify it through words. Like it does, and you know me with my words, right? And so do the listeners of this fine podcast. Like too much, not good. Too few, also not good. There's a sweet spot. So it's the same thing with Hagens, right? Like unfortunately, he could feel that pressure of being at a Boston College rink, hockey East rink in general, right, guys? Like there's so many scouts that go to these games. And like even a Harvard versus Michigan, there was like 60 scouts. I kid you not, there were 60 scouts for the first game of Harvard versus Michigan this year. Just at Bright Landry, like it was insane. Like they had to pull the students. It was a crazy thing. The students and the season ticket holders were complaining because they had to lose their seats to Michigan fans because they travel so well. And these people were standing now behind scouts and like NHL assistant GMs and directors of player evaluation for the Canadians and all this stuff. But the problem is like when you see a kid try too hard to like show you something, like he's like, oh, like now watch. It just rubs you the wrong way. Like he's such an elite player, and I think truly he will be a top 15 winger in the NHL if he can just be patient and roll with it and let it happen. And he comes from a seafaring family, so he probably knows better than most. You can't fight the current, you can't fight the wave. You just have to go with it. If he can go with it and he can let it guide him throughout his career, he will eventually get to where he's destined to be, like wherever that is. But if he tries to force it, he will never amount to what he could be. And so that's why I wouldn't pick him. That's why I would have traded the pick because I'm uncertain, right? Like I know for myself, right? Like human psychology is totally different than a sport. And unfortunately, there's so much that's out of our control. Where when you're a team like the Boston Bruins and you pick at the top so few times, why not package that pick away and see what you can get for it, right? Shop it around if you can get 16 and 17 from a team plus something else to get that pick, go ahead and do it. And then that's what Pittsburgh did to an extent, right? Pittsburgh last draft, and I won't jump in that haystack, but they made trades up the board, down the board, up the board, and then back down the board with that same pick. Like they didn't know what they wanted to do. They were like, all the value, the data is pointing us in this direction. And I think that type of fluidity, like, and that type of boldness to shake and bake a little bit, like you're in Talladega Nights, like I think that rewards people over a period of time. So
Yeah.
that's what my style would, not to say that I would be doing that when there's, you're essentially the leader of a Fortune 500 company. So even if I was like the director of scouting for a team, like I would not support that type of behavior. But now, as an outsider with no skin in the game, I'm like, yeah, shake and bake. Give us something to watch.
I respect your honesty with it. I know you love Hagens, and Sam and I and you were all BC fans at the end of the day, so we want to see him
Yeah.
win and succeed. But I respect your honesty saying at the time back then you wouldn't take him number one, and then even now today, if you had the opportunity to draft him and you were in Sweeney's shoes last year, I respect that. And I think too, like you said, your goal is to always improve your team, right? And whether Pittsburgh's doing that for the when they traded down and up, last year, whether or not you're doing that for the short term or the long term, your goal is obviously to have long-term success for, a sustained amount of time. But if you can win in the short term, right, and get a cup too from trading down to trading up, if you were GM one day, it's always worth it. But I got one last question for you guys. I know it's late on our end, it's a little earlier on your side, Alex, but I know Sam and I, it's a little later on our end. I got one more question for you guys, and it relates to your grad degrees at BC. What was your favorite memory or maybe favorite class from your program? So obviously Sam in
Ooh.
sports administration, and then Alex, which you were in sports administration for a second, and then you finished with a sports analytics degree, which I think was the right move considering how much work you put into that database project that you made and did. I think at the end of the day, which the direction you're going to be a GM one day, I think you made the right decision doing that. But Sam, start with you. Favorite class or favorite memory from the program?
Wow, it's a really tough question. I'm like thinking about it really hard. When it came to my favorite class, I feel like it was the class that like challenged me in a way that I wasn't expecting it. And Alex would know. I took Professor Krug's sports analytics class during the first half of the summer, and it was like the 7 week course instead of the 14-week course. So it was like crammed, projects and like I was up for the challenge. I had nothing else to do that summer. I enjoyed it. It was a blast. But I think from the day I started that class to the day I finished it, I was like, wow, like I've never learned. I've learned that was probably the most I've ever learned in a class, like ever. Like that was crazy. But like the stuff that we got to work on with like, I mean, we don't have to get into the nitty gritty of the projects, but just like getting to work with data around sports and understanding how to use data in a way to explain things about the world, I think is really cool. And the stuff that Krug was working on in his own, um, not freelancing, but he works for like a consulting
Navigate.
company, right? And like he's done plenty of big things in college football and Major League Baseball and pretty much every sports IP you can name. But see, I think that was the best example I can think of what it means to be a student in this program because you get to work on really interesting ideas, challenging projects that really push you to learn, but you also get to be alongside a professor who has proven that like what he is teaching is working and he's actually in the field doing those things that he's speaking of. So I think that's just a cool like and also not even to mention every week we had like a networking call with like some mega high up sports professional. I think we had like the director of partnerships for the New York Giants and like the senior director of strategy at the Phoenix Suns, like some big names of like that just show up on our class on a Zoom call. It was very cool to like be like get all these different perspectives and all these different challenges that all culminated in this one class with this one professor who pretty much just embodied the work that he lives every day and loves what he does. And I think that kind of perfectly is like a microcosm of what the program is these professors who really truly love their craft and they're willing to give back to the school, teaching what they truly love doing. Like if I got to teach a class at BC, like I would love to, I don't know what it would be, but like I used to work in marketing and partnerships, maybe like funnel it into something like that and teach people how to sell, sponsorship assets and media activations, whatever it is. But I'm saying like these people have been in the industry for like decades, and some of them, maybe even less than that, but they've proven their worth and what they've been able to do in their career. And I think it's very cool to be a part of that, plain and simple.
Very well put. I think you summed up the program and the beauty of it in the best way possible. Like obviously you have a lot of professionals that are teaching it that have had great experience that can obviously show you what it's like really working in sports, right? Real life examples. And then they bring in their friends, right? That can come on panels or on Zoom and talk about what it's like working in sports and talk about how difficult it is and the beauty of working in sports. Like all of those things sum up the best part of the program. And I think also the classmates as well, the people you meet the people that also have the same passion for sports and different passions, right? Like a lot of people want to do different things in the program, which is great, in the world of sports. And I'd say Greg Crew's class is probably my favorite. And then I took the business in the NFL with Eugene Lee. That
Hmm.
was a really good one. And then the applied project I did last year with Dr. Keller, that was probably like my favorite part of the program just because everything I learned somewhat like, even though I wrote about professional baseball players and them needing, help, assistance after their careers are over with. Because a lot of them, leave after high school, leave college without a degree, and then they don't really have any work experience besides baseball. Even though not everything I learned in the program necessarily related to that, everything kind of got me to that point to be able to do something like that. So that's my answer. And what about you, Alex?
It might be a little bit of a cliche cop out. Like, I'm not gonna dive into the full like curriculum or anything like that. But for me, it was, most impactful professors. Like, to an extent, every professor was very impactful in my life and my journey there. But like, especially so, Dr. Utschneider. Uh,
Dr. U is
she was
yeah.
like the toughest grade I ever earned at BC, and I took a math for machine learning class that absolutely whooped me. Like, I have no math background. I was told there would be no numbers. But that, like, still, like, that class with Dr. Yu was just insane, and just the amount of people that would come in, and the caliber of people, right? Like, we had Karen Firestone. She's now heading a $1 billion like investment fund in Boston. But she started that. She was a senior level of a person with Fidelity, and she just happens to know Dr. Yu. Like, they're similar social circles and interests. Like, they're both active individuals and successful women in the Boston area and family people at that. So a lot of overlap. They, mesh circles, and then through that friendship sprouted, right? But from having individuals like that to like head coaches, like former NHL assistant coaches coming in to talk in that class, to the personal development, that was a highlight. Professor Krug's class was awesome, but I think like Professor Jamie DiLoretto, like, I gotta give that guy his roses. Not every professor in the world is quality enough to have the entire class, like not just one or two people, but the entire class or most of the class show up like half an hour early to try and get an extra minute or two of FaceTime with the professor just to hear about his day, hear his stories, right? Like, he's such a storyteller, and he lives BC through and through. And I think that's such a special dynamic of the community there, where it's you've got BC lifers, right? And that's what matters. But for me, it's literally like just packaging it all up under one bowl. Like, it's the moments. Like, from the first moment I had at BC, which was like showing up to the open, like, not the open house, but the first day of classes for the grad program, and like meeting Sam sitting at the same table and him being like, hey, like,
Yeah, I met him at
I have a I
orientation.
have a I have a parking pass for the tailgates, like, in case you need a place to hang out, right? And it turns into this friendship that's endured. Or the little moments in and out of the classroom, right? Or going down to City Side or the Circle. And then the one day that I was gonna go to the Circle, but I was like, oh, it's a weekday, I won't go. And it was the day that the BC Eagles got eliminated from NCAA contention. So Ryan Leonard inks a deal with Washington, and the Caps are in town. So Ovi's at the Circle, right? Like, just little details like this. It really like grew my admiration and my love for the city of Boston, especially Boston College itself. And I mean, there's no better, like, we could try and sell the program as much as we want to, but there's no better person to sell it than Dr. Keller, right? Like, she is such a good spokesperson for Woods College, for the institution, for the program itself. And like what she's built it into is like truly impressive. So, I mean, massive roses to her for taking a chance from a kid from Canada, right? Because our first like meeting, it was she was like, well, your grades aren't the best, but you love what you do and what you want to do. Like, she's like, I sense some fire here. She's like, will I regret this? And I was like, I don't know, but if you give me a chance rather than these 4.0 students, like, I'll make sure that I figure it out and I do whatever it takes to get the job done, right? And like, to be finally here, like today, officially knowing that there's back there, like where the blurred frame of a photo is. Like that could be a Boston College degree now with the eagle and the Latin in there. Like it's, goosebumps. Because for me it was always top tier NCAA hockey program in school with the program of this caliber, and then to be able to like get the guidance, the personal development, the moments and the friendship to support that along the way, because you can't just keep being in that grind mentality. Like as much as grind culture is, the Davis Clarks of the world, like as much as they promote this grind mentality, like there's only so much of it to go around. You do need to take time to relax. Like you can't be in the gym 24/7. You need to replenish and recharge and let your muscles recover. Um, like, yeah, I don't know. There's literally nothing I could say to just express how surreal and awesome of a feeling it is, guys. And yeah, like there's gonna be more moments, right? Like that's why I think sports is what draws us all to it. Like it's not determined, like from the best underdog story out there to the most dominant teams that have swept a team in 4 games in the NHL playoffs or NBA playoffs. Like you don't know until the moment's passed, but you show up because you want to be there for the moment itself.
Mhm.
And for a life that's measured in moments, for the various games that we're enamored by that are also measured in moments, it is literally like the one of the pinnacles of human existence is to share in those moments, right? Like from the days of the gladiators in the Colosseum and I forget the name, but the
Circus
tracks.
Maximus.
They had but they had the tracks with the horse racing that was separate, the chariot racing. That it has an actual proper name, but it's escaping me.
Hmm.
Like there's always been some type of phenomena that we just like share in, and we're, millions and billions of different beings that are out here for the same reason, which is to live and love and experience everything from the first moment to the last moment. But there's some that we can share with each other, and it's usually like sports, pop culture, and stuff like that. And I think that's the joy of life, right? And to get experience that through the program at BC, and to experience the city of Boston with my pals, and to be able to experience these next steps with them as well, like can't put a price on it, right? MasterCard.
You guys got your
They might
masters.
copyright strike you. I do apologize for that. I'm not going to say
We're
priceless
not
in
sponsored. We're
connection to
not we're,
that, but
we're not sponsored
We're
here,
not
guys.
sponsored by MasterCard.
not
You
yet.
guys both have your
Not
masters
yet. No,
degrees.
what are we? We're going to be that really small Massachusetts bank, Brookline Bank. Boom.
Hey, we're open for a business here for partnerships. We are, but
Business cards.
you're right. We should have that. But you guys do have a lot to be proud of. In all seriousness, no, though, like next week you'll be walking. Less than a week from now in graduation, which I'll be attending. I want to see you guys walk. But you guys both will be walking. Alex, you're not.
I I just acquired my cap and gown after work today, so I will be walking.
Okay,
But
Alex won't be, but Sam is in. Okay. All right, so I'll
Yeah,
be there.
I'll update you guys, but yeah, unfortunately, it's trending like it's going to be a remote walk for me.
mm.
Okay, that's
Alex, if you
But
want me
I'll
to
do it
if
here
you want
from
Alex, if you
Vancouver.
want me to FaceTime you and like hold the phone up while I'm walking up on stage, I can do
No,
that.
please, no, please, no,
I
no.
could
We're
do
good.
that
We're
because hey,
good.
I'll be there just watching.
No, no,
When they say your name,
no, no,
maybe
no.
I can
We're
do
good.
that.
We're good. No,
But
I don't think Dr. K is gonna say my name. I sent her an email just giving her a rough. I'll give you guys the rundown. We don't need to put it in the podcast time. But yeah,
But congratulations. In
yeah,
all seriousness, though, like to both of you guys, congratulations. It's a big time accomplishment. Obviously, Sam now gets a second degree from BC. You already had a home at BC before, and now Alex,
Crazy.
you have a home now at BC as well. And it's a pleasure being able to do this podcast with you guys.
unreal.
Hopefully, we'll be able to do this again in the future. We'll try to get Joey and Ryan on. I know they were busy doing different things, but to have you guys
Yeah,
on here and for another 2 hour plus episode, I know we were shooting for a lot quicker than that, but
It's all good.
passion for sports, it
Lo-
goes a long way. It's tough
we're
to break
gonna
that
have to
patient with
prepare
it.
like a 3 hour window in the future when the Jose
Yeah.
brothers want to come out here and rip me for my Hagens takes. They'll be like, "What do you mean you trade the pick? You sell out."
Let's
They'll love to hear
go.
that part. They will, I'm sure. And it
Yeah.
obviously is.
Oh, I'm waiting for the texts. I can already feel it.
And I'll send this episode as well to Dr. Keller. I know you shouted out her already, and Jamie D. Loretto, Dr. Yu, like all people that were great influences and great connections that we made from
I
this
mean,
program.
truly the
So,
entire program,
yeah.
man. Like all of the professors, like as you guys said, like there's not a single nail that I could hit any harder to put it into the stud. Like the way that the program is geared, like it truly should. And this was something that Dr. Keller told me. She was like, you can choose any other school, you can choose any other city, but if you choose BC and you choose Boston, like it's a city that's unforgiving. It's a city that doesn't give any respect that isn't earned and deserved. And she's like, if there's any harsh lessons in life that you need to learn, like this is the place you'll learn it. And at the time, I was like, yeah, for sure. And she was painfully correct about all of those things. Like there was so much that I needed to learn, and there's so much that I still need to learn, evidently enough. And it all starts at a certain place, right? Like we all have different starting points in life, but BC's program especially did such a phenomenal job of getting people from different walks of life and different starting points and allowing them to pursue something that they want to pursue and to do it at the best of their ability. And I think that's what it is, right? Like there's a lot of places out there in the world where whether it's a service of any kind or an institution where you go for an education, like sometimes you can feel like you'll hold on to your pockets and be like, well, you're not getting this last bit from me because I don't think the value is there. Like I said it to Dr. Yu, and I'll say it openly here. And she's not paying me to give this advertisement, obviously, but like her class, had I not taken her class, had I not taken sports psychology with Jamie Mraz, who has a long history with NFL organizations and college football, and like just helped me unwire my brain on an informal level, like without those two professors helping me understand myself on a deeper level and investigate why my shortcomings were shortcomings and why they weren't leading me anywhere further, like I wouldn't have, gotten to where I am today.
Yeah.
And like that's something that I would pay, not that I have an infinite amount of wealth to finance this claim, but like those courses are easily courses I would have paid 10 times over.
Mhm.
Don't quote me on that though, because I mean, my
They'll
semester
charge you
just
that.
wrapped up, right? So yeah, Boston College financial aid might actually hit me up and say, "Hey, we know you just settled your bill. However, you
You
made
said
this
you would pay
claim
more.
on a very well-known regional podcast in New England, and you happen to claim that you would pay 10 times the amount that you just paid for your fall and spring bill."
Hey, they might be paying you back. This is great advertising for the Woods College. I mean, they
I
might
can
be getting
assure
money
you,
back here for all
you,
three of us. We had some great advertisement here for
oh, dude,
going with Sports Analytics
if
with
they
Sports
pay me for
Administration.
this advertisement, we're going to Banners, boys.
Oh yeah. Come on now. Get the boys out. We'd have the Hosey boys there again too. Why not, right?
Run it back. Run
Boston
it
When you're
back.
Bruins
back in
watch
Boston,
party, we're running it back.
when you're back in Boston, that'll be a holiday around the city of Boston, Alex. Whenever it happens, and Sam and
August,
I will be there
boys.
too. So August.
August.
August. All right. Can't
Yeah.
wait. Fingers crossed.
If not Monday, August.
All right. Well, sounds good. If it changes, you let me know. But either way, congratulations to both you guys. I'll let you guys go. I know it's, gotten late, but thank you guys so much for taking the time. Being able to do this now a second time was truly a pleasure. And once again, as I said, congratulations. Enjoy obviously getting now your master's from BC. Enjoy every moment that comes with it. And the journey continues. And you boys know I'm always here to help in any way I can. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Joey. We appreciate it.